Joey Manhwa watched his boss Victor Kang kiss his fiancée Selena beside the glass conference room. Then Victor laughed, stole Joey's promotion, called him broke before everyone, and fired him while Selena returned the ring. Outside, a cracked phone lit up with impossible text. The $1 acquisition system had awakened, offering Joey the right to buy one failing asset for $1, as long as the world believed it was worthless. His first target was the dying company that had just thrown him away, and his revenge began before the elevators closed. By midnight, Joey would own the desks, the accounts, the contracts, and the pride of every person who clapped when he fell. The rain made the city look like it was melting. Joey stood under Crown Line Tower with a cardboard box, soaked through the cheap suit Selena used to call dependable. Inside were 5 years reduced to a cracked mug, stolen awards, and the photo from the day he promised Selena a better life. A few minutes earlier, everyone on the 27th floor watched Victor Kang announce that weak performers were no longer welcome. But Victor did not mention Joey's winning proposal or the nights Joey spent fixing Victor's mistakes. He only adjusted the silver watch Selena had given him and said some men were born to lead while others were born to beg. Then, Selena stepped forward, twisted off the engagement ring Joey bought after selling his late mother's piano, placed it on his box, and took Victor's arm. Joey did not shout, and that made them laugh harder. People who had borrowed money from him looked away. Then Jenna from accounting recorded the moment while Mark from sales said the office loser finally learned his place. Selena leaned close enough for Joey to smell the perfume he paid for and whispered that she was tired of waiting for a broke man to become useful. Victor raised his hand and snapped his fingers at security. That sound should have ended Joey's life as he knew it. Instead, it started the purchase. The message on Joey's cracked phone did not blink like a normal notification. It burned through the rain as if the screen had opened into another room. $1 acquisition system activated and the asset scan completed. Nearest eligible distressed asset detected. Aster Crown Creative, market value negative due to hidden debt, unpaid vendor risk, client fraud exposure, executive mismanagement, and pending collapse. Acquisition price, $1. Joey stared until rain ran into his eyes. He wiped the screen with his sleeve, thinking humiliation had broken something inside his head, but the message stayed. Another line appeared. Would you like to purchase the asset that discarded you? Joey laughed once. A broken sound swallowed by thunder. He had $12 left. His rent was due. His fiancée was gone. His career was dead. Now his phone was asking if he wanted to buy the company. He pressed yes. $1 transferred. Hidden ownership mode activated. Legal transfer initiated through dormant creditor options. New ultimate beneficial owner. Joey Manhwa. In plain terms, Joey did not yet hold every ordinary share. He held the emergency control rights that could freeze Victor's hands and make every executive decision answer to him. The rain suddenly felt cold enough to wake him from the dead. At first, nothing changed. The tower still rose above him like a polished knife. Security still watched from behind the doors. His cardboard box still sagged in his arms. But somewhere deep inside the system of contracts, debts, liens, and old emergency clauses that Victor never understood, Aster Crown Creative stopped belonging to the men who laughed at Joey and started belonging to Joey himself. The $1 acquisition system explained itself in calm sentences that seemed too simple for something impossible. It could detect assets that the world had mispriced because of fear, corruption, neglect, or arrogance. If an asset was publicly or financially considered worthless, Joey could acquire control for $1. But ownership alone was not enough. He had to revive value. Every time he turned a dying asset into power, the system would unlock more targets. It did not give him free money. It gave him the door no one else could see. And the first door led straight back into the building where his name had just been erased. Joey walked through the rain to a 24-hour copy shop and sat at a computer with water dripping from his cuffs. His hands shook as he opened the system dashboard. Files unfolded across the screen like a secret heart. Aster Crown's public face was still glamorous. The company occupied 3 floors in a luxury tower. Victor wore custom suits. Selena posted champagne dinners. The lobby screens played videos about innovation, excellence, and trust. Behind the shine, the company was rotting. Aster Crown owed money to printers, contractors, landlords, and freelance designers. It had promised one campaign to 3 different clients and taken deposits from all of them. Victor had moved company funds into a side account under a consultant shell. Selena had signed off on fake luxury vendor invoices after joining Victor's private strategy team. The company that called Joey broke was one missed payment away from losing everything. The system highlighted the most important file, Emergency Control Clause. Joey opened it. Years earlier, before Victor became chief executive, Astor Crown had taken rescue funding from a small creditor group. The agreement said that if Astor Crown defaulted on specific vendor obligations, the creditor could appoint a restructuring controller with full authority over operations. The creditor group had collapsed. Its rights had been bundled, sold, forgotten, and finally marked worthless. The system had bought those rights for $1. Joey owned the hand that could close around Victor's throat. He sat in that copy shop until sunrise, reading every dirty secret of the company that had mocked him. With each file, his pain sharpened into something cleaner. Not rage, not yet. Rage burned too fast. This was colder. This was the patience of a man who had finally learned the price of humiliation and discovered the receipt was in his name. By morning, Victor had already sent an office-wide message announcing Joey's termination. He wrote that Astor Crown was entering a new age of discipline and high standards. He also announced that Selena would take Joey's place as deputy strategy lead. The entire staff reacted with clapping emojis and congratulation messages. Joey read them from a public library computer because his phone battery was dying. Then he typed his first command into the system. Begin silent restructuring audit. Within minutes, automated notices went out to 3 unpaid vendors. Joey did not threaten anyone. He simply paid their minimum claim through an escrow reserve trapped inside the old creditor package and asked for confirmation of default history. The vendors, desperate and angry, sent everything. Overdue invoices, emails from Victor, messages from Selena, proof that Astor Crown had lied to them for months. The system compiled the evidence into a restructuring trigger. At 10 in the morning, while Victor was giving Selena Joey's old desk, a legal notice arrived. Victor laughed when his secretary brought it in. He assumed it was another bill. He opened it with one hand while his other hand rested on Selena's waist. The laughter stopped. The notice said Astor Crown had defaulted it under its rescue agreement. Someone outside the company now controlled every payment, every bonus, every executive account, and every record Victor wanted buried. The name of the controller was not listed, only a seal, an attorney's signature, and a phrase that made Victor's face drain of color. Ultimate owner confidential. Selena's hand slipped off Victor's waist. The office buzzed. Everyone wondered who had moved against them. No one thought of Joey. That was their first mistake. Victor stormed into the finance room and screamed at the accounting director, Morris Vale, demanding to know who held the old creditor rights. Morris had been with Astor Crown longer than anyone. His hands trembled as he searched the archive. He found the old documents, then the transfer history, then the dormant clause. His face aged 10 years in 1 minute. Victor asked who had bought it. Morris whispered that the purchase price was $1. The room went silent. Selena laughed nervously and said it had to be a prank. A serious company could not be bought for the price of vending machine coffee. Victor slapped the folder against the table and shouted that no one buys a company for $1. But that was exactly what happened. The first revenge move came before lunch. Astor Crown had planned a celebratory client presentation for the Northbridge account. The very account Joey had built from nothing. Victor intended to present Joey's strategy as Selena's work. He had already changed the cover slide. He even planned to tell Northbridge that Joey had been fired for incompetence, just in case the client asked why the original strategist was absent. But when Victor connected his laptop to the conference room screen, the slides were locked. A message appeared. Intellectual contribution review required. All materials pending ownership verification. Victor's smile twitched. He told the clients there was a temporary technical issue. Selena tried to open the backup file. Locked. Mark from sales tried his copy. Locked. Every version of the Northbridge strategy was frozen because Joey had created the original draft on a personal device before uploading it to the company drive. Under Astor Crown's own policy, unassigned pre-employment development required written transfer approval. Victor had never bothered to get it. The Northbridge executives waited in silence while Victor's face turned red. Selena tried to improvise, but she had only memorized the opening lines. When the client asked about the regional segmentation logic, she said they wanted to create emotional synergy across demographics. The client asked what that meant. Selena looked at Victor looked at the locked screen. By then, Joey was sitting in a cheap noodle shop across town, watching the real-time transcript through the system dashboard. The client ended the meeting after 15 minutes. Then Northbridge sent a formal message to Astor Crown saying they would continue only if the original strategist returned to lead the campaign. Victor threw his glass against the wall. Joey ate his noodles slowly. The second revenge move came that afternoon. The system found that Victor had been using company funds to lease a luxury car under an executive brand partnership that did not exist. He drove it to impress investors, employees, and Selena's social media followers. In reality, Astor Crown had missed 3 payments. The lease company had been waiting for any authorized party to confirm default. Joey approved the repossession. At 6 in the evening, Victor walked out of Crown Line Tower with Selena on his arm, trying to look calm for the employees gathered near the lobby. He had told everyone the legal notice was nothing. He said weak people were spreading fear because they could not survive in elite environments. He said Astor Crown was stronger than ever. Then 2 men in dark jackets approached the silver car parked at the curb. Victor shouted as they hooked it to a tow truck. Selena froze. Employees gathered at the glass doors. Phones came out. Jenna, who had recorded Joey's firing, started recording again without realizing she had become a historian for the wrong kingdom. Victor yelled that he was the chief executive of Astor Crown. The repossession agent said the account was delinquent and the authorized controller had approved recovery. Someone whispered, "Authorized controller." Someone else whispered, $1. The car rolled away as Victor stood in the rain, holding the keys to nothing. The video went through the office group chat before dinner. Joey watched it alone in his tiny apartment. The ceiling leaked. The radiator clicked like insects. Selena's empty side of the closet gaped open because she had already taken her clothes. The ring lay on the table beside his cold noodles. He should have felt happy. Instead, he felt the ache beneath revenge, the bruised place where love used to live. Selena had not just left him, she had rewritten their history. She had made him feel like a burden for every sacrifice he made. He remembered carrying her through flu season, paying her certification fees, skipping meals to help her buy interview clothes. He remembered her crying when she failed her first promotion panel, and how he stayed up all night building her confidence. She had used his hands to climb, then stepped on his face in front of everyone. Joey closed his fist around the ring until the band cut his palm. The system chimed, emotional volatility detected. Recommendation: do not sell pain cheaply, convert pain into leverage. New eligible asset detected. Asset: East Dock Storage Warehouse. Market value: abandoned and debt encumbered. Acquisition price: $1. Strategic value: unknown inventory, proximity to port, collateral potential. Joey almost ignored it. He wanted only Astor Crown. He wanted Victor ruined, Selena exposed, and every mocking coworker begging for his signature. But the system was teaching him something. Revenge that stopped at one enemy was a tantrum. Revenge that built an empire was justice with interest. He bought the warehouse. The next morning, Joey took a bus to East Dock. The warehouse sat near the water behind a rusted gate, surrounded by weeds and broken pallets. No one wanted it because the roof leaked. The district was considered dead, and the previous owner had vanished under debt. It looked like a corpse of industry. But Joey had learned to distrust appearances. Inside, the building smelled of dust, salt, and old cardboard. Rows of forgotten crates stretched under broken skylights. The system scanned each section. Most items were worthless: cracked furniture, obsolete display stands, damaged lighting equipment. Then a soft blue outline appeared around a sealed storage cage at the back. Joey cut the lock with borrowed bolt cutters. Inside were servers. Not new servers, but not trash either. They had belonged to a failed logistics startup that collapsed before launching its software. Alongside them were tablets, barcode scanners, routers, and sealed backup drives. The system valued the equipment far above the warehouse debt. More importantly, it detected unfinished routing software that could track shipments faster than the outdated system Astor Crown's largest packaging client still used. A worthless warehouse had become a technology asset. Joey spent 2 days cleaning, testing, and selling off scrap. The system helped him match buyers. He used the proceeds to hire 2 freelance technicians who thought he was a small liquidation manager. He did not tell them he had slept in the warehouse office because his apartment landlord was threatening eviction. He did not tell them his own company had fired him. He only asked what it would take to revive the routing software. One technician, a sharp woman named Mira Chen, looked at the code and said the original team had built something brilliant, but ran out of funding too soon. She said with the right data feed, the software could become a real-time delivery optimization tool. Joey asked how much the market would pay for that. Mira laughed and said, the market would pay a fortune if someone important pretended to discover it. Joey smiled for the first time in days. At Astor Crown, panic was spreading. The restructuring controller remained hidden, spending approvals were frozen, and Northbridge refused to move without Joey. Victor tried to call Joey, but Joey did not answer. Selena sent him a message first. Joey, this has gone too far. We should talk like adults. He stared at the message until another arrived. Victor was angry that day. I did not mean to hurt you. Then another. You know how business is? Please do not make this embarrassing. Joey almost replied, embarrassing was you handing me back the ring in front of everyone. Instead, he saved the messages. The system labeled them hypocrisy evidence. Victor's approach was less careful. He called from unknown numbers, left voicemails, and then sent Mark from sales to Joey's apartment with a fake apology letter. Mark had once eaten Joey's lunch from the office fridge and blamed the intern. Mark now stood in the hallway wearing a forced smile, saying the team missed Joey and Victor might consider rehiring him as a contractor. Joey asked what rate. Mark said exposure and future opportunities. Joey closed the door. That same night, Astor Crown's payroll approval stalled. Not because Joey wanted ordinary employees to suffer, but because the system found executive bonus transfers disguised as vendor payments. Victor had tried to pay himself before salaries went out. Joey blocked the bonus, released staff payroll, and sent a controller memo to all employees. Regular wages protected. Executive irregularities under review. No one had ever protected regular wages at Astor Crown before. Victor used delayed pay as a weapon, especially against juniors who could not complain. The employees read the memo in silence. For the first time, the hidden controller seemed less like a threat and more like a judge. Jenna from accounting reread the line 3 times. Her paycheck cleared. Victor's bonus did not. Fear changed direction. Joey's next move struck Selena. She had built her new image around luxury. Designer bags, rooftop dinners, private cars. She told people Victor had shown her what real success looked like. But the system showed that most of her display was fake. Several bags were rented. The penthouse dinner was charged to Astor Crown's client entertainment account. The watch she claimed Victor bought for her came from a company gift inventory meant for Northbridge executives. Even the engagement announcement photo she posted with Victor was taken in a hotel lobby during a vendor conference they never paid for. Joey could have exposed everything at once. He waited. Revenge was better when it made the guilty walk toward the blade. Selena announced a live-streamed online interview about women in leadership. She planned to talk about leaving toxic relationships and choosing ambition. Victor encouraged it because Astor Crown needed good publicity. Selena wore a white suit and the rented diamond necklace Joey recognized from an invoice in the system files. During the interview, the host asked about her rapid promotion. Selena smiled and said talent rises when it stops carrying dead weight. The comments cheered. Then the host received an anonymous packet. She hesitated, glanced off-screen, and asked Selena whether Astor Crown had approved the use of client funds for personal luxury expenses. Selena's smile hardened. The host read a line from the invoice. A rooftop dining bill charged to Northbridge Relationship Development on the same night. Selena posted a romantic dinner with Victor. Then a necklace rental billed as executive visual branding. Then a watch removed from corporate gift inventory. Selena said the documents were fake. The host said Astor Crown's restructuring controller had verified them. That phrase landed like thunder. The comments turned viewers asked if her luxury life was rented. Someone reposted the clip where she returned Joey's ring. Someone else placed the two clips side by side, Selena calling Joey broke and Selena being asked about rented jewelry. The internet did what The Office had done to Joey, but louder. Selena ended the interview early. By morning, the phrase rented queen was trending in the company's private chat. Joey did not celebrate. He had wanted her to feel what he felt, but seeing her panic touched a memory he hated, the old instinct to protect her. Then he remembered her whispering that she was tired of waiting for a broke man to become useful. He turned off his phone and went back to the warehouse. Myra and the technicians had restored the routing software enough to run a demonstration. Joey named it Dockline Flow. It could reduce delivery waste by analyzing truck timing, port congestion, and warehouse capacity. It was not perfect, but it was real. Joey asked Myra what failing companies would need it most. She named 3 logistics firms near collapse. The system scanned. Eligible distressed assets detected. Joey bought minority rights with emergency veto power in the first for $1 through unpaid equipment liens. He bought warehouse options in the second for $1 through an abandoned tax certificate. He bought a dormant software license claim against the third for $1 because the company had failed to pay the original startup that owned the code. Each purchase looked tiny. Each was dismissed by the world as trash. Together, they formed a net around the local delivery market. and Astor Crown still depended on those logistics firms for client campaigns. Joey's revenge stopped being personal and became structural. Victor began to feel it without understanding it. A packaging sample missed a deadline. A print shipment was rerouted. A promotional display order required new deposit terms. Every delay was legal. Every demand was documented. Every cost traced back to negligence. Victor had ignored for years. When he screamed at vendors, they no longer trembled. Many of them had received payments or settlement offers from the hidden controller. They had a new person to trust. Victor's power had always been theater. Joey was cutting the lights. The board noticed Astor Crown had 3 board members who rarely entered the office. They liked Victor because he looked successful. He took them to expensive dinners, gave confident projections, and blamed every shortfall on market conditions. Now they were receiving creditor notices, client complaints, vendor evidence, and online scandal reports about Selena. They called an emergency meeting. Victor arrived in his second-best suit because his tailor had suspended his account. Selena sat beside him with swollen eyes hidden behind makeup. Morris from accounting sat at the far end, sweating through his collar. The board chair, a cold woman named Helena Frost, asked Victor one simple question. Who controls our restructuring rights? Victor said they were investigating. Helena asked why a $1 creditor had more control over the company than the chief executive. Victor said old documents were being exploited. Helena asked why those old documents existed. Victor blamed previous management. Morris slowly lifted his hand. Victor stared at him. Morris lowered it. Helena saw, after the meeting, Morris received an encrypted message from the controller. You protected payroll records. You hesitated when asked to lie. Choose carefully. Morris had spent years surviving Victor by staying quiet. He had watched Joey work late, watched Victor take credit, watched Selena drift toward power, watched the company rot. He told himself silence was not betrayal if he had a mortgage and a sick wife. But the controller's message opened a small door in his conscience. What do you want? Joey answered through the system. Truth. Morris sent the first file at midnight. It was the bonus ledger. The ledger showed that Victor had siphoned money through fake consultants for over 2 years. Selena's name appeared only recently, but enough to prove she had signed false approvals. Mark had received commissions on contracts Joey created. Jenna had helped bury expense reports in exchange for a promotion. The entire office ecosystem that laughed at Joey had fed on stolen value. Joey read until dawn. Each name was a wound. Each number became a weapon. The system offered several options: immediate exposure, legal filing, board escalation, vendor lawsuit, client disclosure. Joey chose sequence. He did not want chaos. He wanted inevitability. First, he restored Northbridge, not for Victor, for leverage. Joey contacted Northbridge through a newly formed company called Harbor Vale Strategy, using a business address at the East Dock warehouse. He did not announce himself as Astor Crown's owner. He said he had built the original campaign and could deliver it independently if they required clean execution. Northbridge's director, Anika Rao, recognized his name immediately. She said Victor had claimed Joey was mentally unstable after being fired. Joey sent her the locked strategy file history, his drafts and proof of authorship. Anika was silent for a long time. Then she asked what he wanted. Joey said he wanted Northbridge to publicly demand clean management standards from any vendor handling their campaign. Anika understood more than he said. 3 days later, Northbridge issued a formal statement praising the original strategic work behind its campaign but suspending Astor Crown's executive participation pending governance review. It did not mention Joey as the hidden owner. It did not accuse Victor directly. It did something worse. It made him look untrustworthy in language polite enough for investors. Astor Crown's phones exploded. Victor tried to call Anika. She refused. He tried to send Selena. Northbridge's assistant said Miss Rao did not meet with unauthorized promotional staff. Selena heard the phrase unauthorized promotional staff and nearly cried. Joey watched from the warehouse as Dockline Flow rerouted Northbridge sample deliveries through his newly controlled logistics network. The campaign that Victor stole now moved through Joey's assets. Every box, every proof, every delivery confirmation passed through systems. Joey owned Victor still thought he was fighting to keep a client. He did not realize the client's future depended on the man he had thrown into the ring. Then Joey made the office beg. He authorized a limited consulting request to Astor Crown. The message said the original strategist, Joey Manhwa, was required for Northbridge campaign continuity. If Astor Crown wished to preserve the contract, it had to submit a formal apology for misrepresenting his contributions, reinstate his access as an external strategy authority, and pay a premium consulting fee. Victor refused. The board overruled him. The next morning, Joey returned to the 27th floor. He wore the same cheap suit, cleaned and pressed. He carried no cardboard box. The security guard, who had escorted him out, looked at the visitor pass and swallowed. Employees turned as he walked through the aisle. Conversation died in waves. Jenna lowered her phone. Mark stared at his shoes. Morris stood when Joey passed. Victor came out of his office with a smile sharpened like glass. He said he was glad Joey had come to his senses. Joey looked at him and said nothing. That silence unsettled everyone more than shouting would have. Selena stepped forward, softening her face into the expression she used when she wanted forgiveness without admitting guilt. She said Joey looked tired. She said they should talk privately. She said people had said things they did not mean. Joey placed a folder on the nearest desk. The folder contained Astor Crown's formal apology draft. It named him as the original strategist. It acknowledged that his dismissal occurred under disputed circumstances. It required Victor's signature before Northbridge would release the next payment. Victor looked at the folder and laughed. Then Helena Frost entered behind him. She said, "Sign it." Victor's face changed. Selena's hand fell from his arm. The office watched as Victor Kang, the man who had snapped his fingers at security, picked up a pen and signed an apology to the man he called broke. His hand pressed so hard the paper tore slightly. Joey did not smile. He took the folder, checked the signature, and turned to leave. Mark blurted out that Joey should not act arrogant just because he got lucky. Joey stopped. For a moment, the old office loser stood in the aisle again. Everyone expected him to swallow it. That was the role they had assigned him. The quiet man, the useful man, the man who took blame because fighting back looked impolite. Joey turned. He asked Mark how many commissions he earned from proposals. Joey wrote. Mark went pale. Joey named the amount, not in anger, in precision. The office looked at Mark. Mark opened his mouth, but no words came. Joey then asked Jenna how many expense flags she buried for Victor, while junior staff waited on delayed reimbursements. Jenna's phone slipped from her hand. Joey asked Selena whether the rented necklace had been returned or if the late fee had also been charged to Northbridge. Selena recoiled like he had slapped her. Joey looked at Victor last. He said the people who called him broke had been living on credit, stolen labor, and borrowed shine. Then he walked out. The clip of Victor signing the apology leaked before sunset. No one knew who recorded it. Maybe Jenna by habit, maybe Morris by guilt, maybe the system through a conference room camera. But the city saw it. The same people who laughed at Joey's firing now watched Victor bow over the paper. Comments flooded in. They called Joey the $1 ghost. They asked how a fired employee came back with board power. They asked who really owned Astor Crown. Victor hated the questions because he did not know the answer. His next mistake was hiring a crisis consultant. The consultant, Adrian Pike, had a reputation for destroying reputations. He advised Victor to change the story. They would claim Joey had stolen confidential files, manipulated vendors, and orchestrated a hostile attack because he was bitter over Selena. They would paint him as unstable, obsessive, and dangerous. Selena agreed. She said people would believe it because Joey had always looked desperate around her. The campaign began with anonymous posts. Joey Manhwa was not a victim. They said he was a stalker who could not accept rejection. He had hacked company systems. He had threatened executives. He had forged documents. He had always been poor because he lacked character. Joey read the posts from the warehouse office while Mira stood behind him. She asked if he wanted them taken down. Joey said no. He wanted them gathered. The system collected every post, traced payment routes, matched language patterns, and found the crisis consultant's subcontractors. Then it found something even better. Adrian Pike's firm was failing. It had lawsuits, unpaid interns, and a reputation black market where wealthy clients paid to bury scandals. Publicly, the firm looked elite. Financially, it was a leaking boat. Eligible distressed asset detected. Asset, Pike Reputation Partners debt bundle. Acquisition price, $1. Joey bought the debt. The man hired to destroy him woke up owing him money. Joey waited until Adrian released a video statement accusing Joey of corporate sabotage. The video was polished, dramatic, and cruel. It showed edited footage of Joey leaving with a cardboard box, Selena wiping fake tears, and Victor saying leadership sometimes required removing toxic people. Then Joey triggered the debt clause. Pike Reputation Partners received notice that its defaulted obligations had been acquired by a new creditor. All client records tied to unpaid litigation defense had to be preserved. All subcontractor payments were frozen pending review. Adrian called Victor in a panic, but Victor screamed that the campaign had to continue. So Joey released the subcontractor invoices, not private client secrets. Just enough proof to show Astor Crown had paid for a smear campaign while under restructuring review. The posts attacking Joey were linked to the consultant. Selena's emotional interview clips were identified as scripted. Victor's statement had been recorded in the same studio used for 3 other corporate cover-ups. Public sympathy turned violently. People who loved downfall stories now loved Joey's patience. They replayed the betrayal. They replayed the car repossession. They replayed Victor signing the apology. They compared Selena's tears in the smear video with her laughter during Joey's firing. Every attempt to bury him made him taller. But Joey still did not reveal he owned Astor Crown. Hidden ownership was his sharpest blade. The system explained why. As long as Victor believed he had something left to protect, he would keep exposing what he valued. If Joey revealed himself too early, the guilty would freeze. If he stayed unseen, they would run in every direction and leave footprints. So Joey turned to the next worthless asset. A local business paper called Metro Ledger was dying. It had once covered finance with dignity, but advertising collapsed, staff left, and its website became a graveyard of unpaid hosting bills. No one wanted a newspaper with no readers. The system did. Eligible distressed asset detected, asset Metro Ledger archive and publishing rights, acquisition price $1. Joey bought it. Mira asked why he wanted an old newspaper when social media was faster. Joey said social media laughed, but archives remembered. Metro Ledger held 20 years of business filings, old interviews, bankruptcy notices, and executive profiles. Its archive contained a forgotten article about Victor's first company, a boutique agency that collapsed after client deposits vanished. The article named a junior partner who took the blame. That partner later disappeared from the industry. The archive also contained photos of Selena attending a luxury networking event before she ever claimed to have met Victor by chance. She had been near him months earlier while still engaged to Joey. Joey felt the old pain open again. So the betrayal had not been sudden. It had been scheduled. He found messages through Astor Crown's recovered device logs that proved Selena had been feeding Victor information about Joey's strategy drafts while smiling across dinner at Joey's kitchen table. She had not simply chosen power after Victor promoted her. She had traded Joey's work before the ring came off. For the first time since the rain, Joey nearly lost control. He stood in the warehouse server room, breathing hard, while Mira pretended not to watch. The system pulsed on his phone. Emotional volatility detected. Recommendation, strike the transaction, not the wound. Joey understood. The wound wanted Selena ruined because she had broken his heart. The transaction wanted her exposed because she had sold stolen work. He chose the transaction. Metro Ledger published its first new investigation under Joey's ownership. The article did not mention his heartbreak. It mapped how Astor Crown's Northbridge proposal developed, which files were created by Joey, which copies Selena accessed, and which slides appeared in Victor's executive presentation. It showed timestamps, document revisions, and promotion announcements. It asked one question: was Astor Crown built on stolen labor? The article spread because it came from an old business archive, not a gossip account. Professionals read it, clients read it, former employees began sending tips. Stories emerged from designers, interns, writers, analysts, and contractors who said Victor took credit, delayed pay, and promoted loyal thieves over quiet workers. Astor Crown's glamorous brand cracked open and hundreds of buried voices came out. The office that had laughed at Joey became a place where everyone feared their own memory. Helena Frost called Joey's consulting line. She did not know he was the owner, but she knew he had influence with the controller. She asked for a meeting. Joey agreed. They met in a private room at a quiet hotel. Helena was calm, elegant, and dangerous in the way people become when they have survived many boardrooms. She studied Joey for a long moment and said he did not look surprised by anything happening at Astor Crown. Joey said surprise was expensive, so he had stopped buying it. Helena almost smiled. She asked what the controller wanted. Joey said accountability, clean books, client survival, and removal of executives who treated stolen work as strategy. Helena asked if he meant Victor. Joey said he meant everyone who signed a false document. Helena leaned back. She said that kind of purge could destroy the company. Joey said the company was already destroyed. It was only still standing because unpaid people, stolen ideas, and fake wealth were holding up the walls. Helena asked why he cared after being humiliated. Joey looked at the hotel window. Far below, cars moved like sparks through the city. He thought of his mother's piano. He thought of the ring on the table. He thought of the junior employees who still needed their paychecks. He thought of all the people who had no system and no miracle, only their quiet labor and the hope that someone would not steal it. He said because revenge should leave something better behind, or it is just another kind of theft. Helena listened, then she slid a folder across the table. Inside were board voting agreements, executive compensation approvals, and a private memo showing Victor planned to sell Astor Crown's client list to a competitor and abandon the company if things worsened. Selena would receive a signing bonus at the new firm. Mark would come along. Everyone else would be left with unpaid wages. Helena said she could remove Victor if the controller backed her. Joey said the controller would. Helena asked one more question. Who are you really, Mr. Manhwa? Joey smiled faintly. He said a man who learned the value of $1. The removal vote was scheduled for Friday. Victor found out Thursday night. His reaction was exactly what Joey expected. He tried to burn the house before anyone could take it. He ordered Morris to transfer emergency funds to an outside account. Morris refused. Victor threatened him. Morris recorded it. Selena called the competitor and begged them to accelerate their offer. Mark tried to copy client files onto a personal drive. The system locked him out and logged the attempt. Jenna deleted old expense messages. The system restored them from backups. Every escape route became evidence. Victor then did something reckless. He called Joey directly from Selena's phone. Joey answered. For a moment, neither spoke. Victor's voice came smooth and low. He said Joey had made his point. He said business was rough, but men could settle things. He said Joey did not understand the level he was playing on. He offered cash, then a job, then a public apology. Then he said Selena could talk to him if that would calm him down. Joey listened. Victor mistook silence for weakness and said Joey should remember who Selena chose. That was when Joey finally spoke. He said Selena chose a rented car, unpaid invoices, stolen slides, and a man who could not even keep control of a company sold for $1. Victor's breathing changed. Joey ended the call. Selena sent a message a minute later. Please do not destroy me with him. Joey did not reply. Friday arrived like a court date. The board meeting took place on the top floor, in the glass room where Joey had once seen Victor kiss Selena. Victor dressed like a king going to war. Selena sat behind him, pale but still trying to look loyal. Mark hovered near the wall. Morris sat with the finance files. Helena chaired the meeting. Joey was not in the room, at least not physically. The restructuring controller attended through legal counsel and a secure video feed with no face displayed. The board reviewed evidence, misused funds, false invoices, client misrepresentations, smear campaign payments, attempted file theft, executive self-dealing. Victor objected to everything, he said. The documents were manipulated by a bitter former employee. He said Joey had bewitched the process through sympathy. He said the board was surrendering to a ghost. Helena asked counsel whether the controller had a recommended action. The counsel read the statement. Immediate suspension of Victor Kang as chief executive. Termination for cause pending investigation. Freezing of executive severance. Referral of fraudulent transactions to authorities. Appointment of interim management. Victor exploded. He shouted that nobody in that room had built Astor Crown like he had. Helena said he had not built it. He had harvested it. Victor pointed at the blank video feed and demanded to know who was hiding behind it. The room went still. Joey had planned to remain hidden longer, but the system displayed a new system window. Public reveal opportunity. Emotional payoff impact. High. Strategic risk. Acceptable. Would you like to reveal ownership authority? Joey sat in the warehouse office, wearing the same suit he had worn when he returned for the apology. Mira stood nearby, holding her breath. He pressed yes. The video feed activated. Joey's face appeared on the boardroom screen. The silence was so complete that even Victor's anger seemed to fall through the floor. Selena covered her mouth. Mark whispered, "No." Morris closed his eyes. Victor stared at the screen as if reality had betrayed him. Joey did not raise his voice. He said good morning. He said that as the controlling rights holder through Astor Crown's distressed creditor structure, he approved the board's motion. He said the company would no longer be managed by people who confuse humiliation with leadership. He said every employee who earned honest wages would be protected and every person who stole would be audited. Victor stood so fast, His chair hit the wall. He said Joey was broke. The words sounded smaller than they had a week earlier. Joey looked at him through the screen and said, "Yes, you kept saying that. Then you sold me your future for $1." No one laughed. That made it worse. The vote passed. Victor Kang was removed. Security entered the same glass room where Joey had once been shamed. This time, they walked toward Victor. He shouted that he would sue everyone. He shouted that Joey was a thief. He shouted that Selena should say something. Selena looked away. The security guards escorted Victor past the employees. People stood in the aisle, frozen by the reversal. Some looked satisfied. Some looked terrified. Jenna lifted her phone, then slowly lowered it when Joey's face appeared on every office display with a real-time message. All recordings of employee disciplinary events are now prohibited without consent. Jenna put the phone down like it was hot. Victor crossed the lobby as rain tapped against the glass doors. He had no silver car waiting, no driver, no cheering staff. The revolving doors pushed him into the street where a taxi ignored his raised hand. The man who fired Joey in the rain left under the same rain, carrying nothing but a briefcase full of frozen accounts. Selena did not leave with him. That betrayal should have surprised Victor, but it did not surprise Joey. Power had always been her compass. After Victor's removal, Astor Crown entered what the news called the $1 revolt. Business channels debated how a forgotten creditor clause could topple a flashy executive. Social media turned Joey into a symbol. People edited dramatic videos with rain rings and office doors. Former workers from other companies wrote about stolen labor and quiet revenge. The phrase "owns their future" became a meme. Joey hated the attention, but used it. Metro Ledger published a series on corporate fake wealth. Dockline Flow signed its first paid contract with Northbridge. The East Dock warehouse became a logistics and strategy hub. Joey formed Harbor Vale Holdings to keep his acquisitions organized. The $1 system rewarded him for raising distressed value through operational revival rather than pure destruction. New ability unlocked. Asset synergy map. The dashboard changed. Instead of isolated targets, Joey could now see relationships between failing assets. A bankrupt print shop connected to Astor Crown's campaign work. A struggling catering company connected to corporate events. A nearly empty training center connected to employee development grants. A failed local app connected to customer loyalty programs. Each looked worthless alone together. They could replace the corrupt network Victor had used. Joey bought them one by one for $1 each. But every purchase came with responsibility. A failing print shop had workers who had not been paid overtime. Joey had to negotiate with them, fix machines, and win back customers. A catering company had debts and spoiled reputation because the owner faked premium ingredients. Joey kept the kitchen staff, fired the owner, and used honest local suppliers. The training center had broken projectors and outdated courses, but its license allowed corporate certification programs. Joey turned it into a place where junior employees could learn the skills. Victor had denied them. Revenge became infrastructure. Yet not everyone wanted Joey to rise. Victor still had allies. One was Damon Rusk, chairman of the rival firm Silver Arc Media. Damon had planned to buy Astor Crown's client list from Victor at a discount. Joey's intervention cost him millions in future contracts. Damon was older than Victor, colder, and much better at hiding greed behind tradition. He invited Joey to lunch at a private club where the silverware looked more expensive than Joey's first car. Damon spoke kindly at first. He said he admired Joey's courage. He said the city needed young blood. He said corporate war was best avoided when gentlemen could divide opportunities. Joey asked what he wanted. Damon said Astor Crown was damaged. Harbor Vale was inexperienced. Dockline Flow was unproven. If Joey sold Northbridge, the print shop, and the logistics software to Silver Arc, Damon would give him a generous exit and let him keep his heroic reputation. Joey asked how generous. Damon named an amount that would have changed Joey's life a month earlier. Joey thought of the leaking apartment, the empty closet, the ring, the bus rides to East Dock, the humiliation video, the employees who now looked at him like maybe the world could correct itself. Then he asked Damon if he always offered coins for other people's futures. Damon's smile thinned. He said Joey had mistaken a lucky loophole for power. Joey said Damon had mistaken inherited rooms for intelligence. The lunch ended politely. The war began immediately. Silver Arc pressured vendors to avoid Joey's network. Banks hesitated on small credit lines. Anonymous stories questioned whether Harbor Vale was a revenge cult disguised as a holding company. Damon had old friends in finance, media, and City Hall. Victor had been loud and vain. Damon was systemic. Fighting him would require more than exposure. The system scanned SilverArk and did not offer it for $1. That meant SilverArk was not distressed enough. It had real assets, real cash, and real influence. Joey could not simply buy it through a forgotten clause. For the first time, the system did not hand him the enemy. It handed him the battlefield. Eligible distressed asset cluster detected. Cluster Rivergate Industrial District. Status abandoned, polluted reputation, fragmented ownership ignored by developers. Strategic value unknown due to proposed transport corridor, acquisition path, multiple $1 claims. Joey studied the map. Rivergate was an ugly stretch of old factories between East Dock and the Northern Rail Line. For decades, companies dumped storage there, then left. Most buildings were tied up in unpaid taxes, dead partnerships, and environmental fear. Developers avoided it because cleanup seemed impossible. SilverArk ignored it because it was not glamorous. But the city had quietly proposed a transport corridor that could pass nearby if enough commercial activity returned. Joey saw the future. Damon had missed. He spent 3 weeks buying $1 claims across Rivergate. A loading yard here, a broken sign factory there, a tiny office building with mold in the walls, a former textile plant with a collapsed roof but intact power lines. Every asset looked like a burden. Reporters joked that the $1 king was becoming a junk collector. Damon's people laughed publicly. Victor, desperate for relevance, appeared on a podcast and said Joey had always been obsessed with trash because that was his natural environment. The clip spread. Selena liked it from a private account, then unliked it too late. People noticed. Joey did not respond. He was too busy turning trash into leverage. Rivergate had problems, but it also had space. Lots of space. Dockline flow needed a testing zone. The print shop needed cheaper storage. The catering company needed a central kitchen. The training center needed classrooms. Small vendors pushed out by luxury rents needed affordable units. Joey offered them simple deals. Work honestly. Pay gradually. Share infrastructure. No fake fees. No executive games. Slowly, lights returned to Rivergate. A mechanic opened a repair bay. A design studio rented the old sign factory. A delivery cooperative moved into the loading yard. Mira built a software lab in a former textile office and hired interns from the training center. Northbridge toured the district and approved it as a sustainability story for its campaign. Metro Ledger documented the revival with photos, interviews, and numbers. The place Damon called trash became proof that Joey could create value where rich men saw only dirt. Then the city announced the transport corridor review. Suddenly, Rivergate mattered. Developers called, banks called, politicians called, SilverArk called through 3 intermediaries pretending not to be SilverArk. Land around Rivergate rose in value. The $1 claims became controlling positions in a district everyone now wanted. Joey did not sell. He used the rising value to secure financing for payroll, cleanup, and expansion. He made every contractor sign transparent payment terms. He publicly listed wage protection policies. Former Astor Crown Juniors applied to Harbor Vale. Some wanted redemption, some wanted safety, some wanted to be near power before it moved again. Joey accepted only those who could admit what they had done. Mark applied through a recruiter under a modified name. The system flagged him. Joey invited him for an interview anyway. Mark arrived at Rivergate wearing humility like a borrowed coat. He said he had been under pressure. He said Victor created a toxic culture. He said he never personally hated Joey. He said everyone joked in the office and Joey should not take it too deeply. Joey listened from behind a plain desk in the renovated warehouse. Through the window, forklifts moved. Former abandoned buildings were being painted. People worked because Joey had turned waste into wages. Joey asked Mark what he had stolen. Mark blinked. Joey repeated the question. Mark said he might have benefited from some shared materials. Joey opened a folder and listed each commission Mark took from proposals Joey wrote. He listed the client calls where Mark cut Joey out. He listed the messages where Mark called Joey office furniture with a pulse. Mark's face sagged. Joey said he could forgive weakness, fear, and even ambition. He could not hire a man who still described theft as shared materials. Mark asked if Joey wanted him to beg. Joey said no. Begging was performance. Restitution was action. He offered Mark a choice: repay the commissions over time into a fund for unpaid interns, submit a signed statement about Victor's credit theft, and start at the bottom in logistics support with no client access, or leave and keep pretending he was a victim of culture. Mark looked around the warehouse, where people who once outranked him now treated Joey with quiet respect. He signed that was Joey's revenge loop. The punishment was not always destruction. Sometimes it was making a proud person work honestly under the future he mocked. Jenna came next. She did not apply. She arrived after work one evening and waited outside the warehouse in the rain. Joey saw her from the second floor but made her wait until she knocked. When she entered, she held a small flash drive and looked terrified. She said she had recorded more than the firing. Joey said he knew. She said no, not just that. She had recorded Victor humiliating interns, Selena mocking employees, Mark bragging about commissions, and Morris warning that payroll could collapse. At first, she recorded for gossip. Later, she recorded because she was scared. She had never shared the worst clips because they made her look complicit too. Joey asked why she brought them now. Jenna cried. She said because when her paycheck cleared during the restructuring freeze, she realized the hidden controller had protected her even after what she did. She said Joey did not owe her mercy, but the people in the clips deserved truth. Joey took the drive. He did not comfort her. He did not insult her. He said accountability would hurt. She said she knew. Metro Ledger used the clips carefully, with consent where possible and legal review where needed. The public saw more of Astor Crown's culture. Victor screaming at a junior designer until she apologized for his typo. Selena laughing about how easy it was to make Joey work if she looked sad. Mark saying poor people should be grateful when rich people steal from them because at least their work gets seen. That last line destroyed him online. But the Selena clip hit Joey hardest. He watched it only once. Selena was sitting in Victor's office holding a glass of wine. She said Joey was sweet, but sweet did not pay for skyline views. She said he would build a ladder and never notice her climbing it with someone else. Victor laughed and said Joey had the face of a loyal dog. Selena laughed too. Joey closed the laptop. Mira found him later in the loading yard, standing alone beside stacks of pallets. She did not ask if he was all right. She knew that was a useless question. She only stood beside him and said people reveal their price when they think no one is recording. Joey said he had sold his mother's piano for her ring. Mira's expression softened. He said he used to think that meant love. Now he wondered if it meant he had been stupid. Mira said, generosity was not stupidity. Giving the best of yourself to someone who wastes it does not make the gift worthless. It reveals the thief. Joey did not answer, but the words stayed. The system chimed later that night. Emotional clarity detected. New reward unlocked. Value restoration bonus for every asset revived with employee protection and transparent revenue. Joey could unlock a bonus credit line tied to actual performance. Not magical cash, not endless wealth. A discipline engine, the system seemed to reward the exact opposite of Victor's fake empire. It wanted dying things made useful, hidden value made visible, and humiliated labor repaid. Joey began to understand that the system had not chosen him because he was angry. It chose him because he knew what being undervalued felt like. Damon Rusk understood the threat too late. SilverArc's clients began asking why a young holding company with ugly warehouses was delivering cleaner campaigns, faster logistics, and better public sentiment than Damon's polished firm. Joey's Rivergate district became a case study in practical revival. Northbridge's campaign launched under Harbor Vale strategy and became a massive success. It told a story about overlooked infrastructure, honest labor, and rebuilding trust. The irony was not lost on anyone. Joey had turned his own betrayal into a brand language clients could feel. Astor Crown, under interim management, stabilized. Some employees left, some were fired, some stayed and changed. Helena asked Joey to become Public Chief Restructuring Officer. He declined the title but accepted operational authority through Harbor Vale. He did not want the old throne, he wanted the network. Damon decided to crush Rivergate through regulation. A sudden inspection wave hit Joey's properties. Fire code, zoning, environmental, labor, signage, parking, waste disposal. Some issues were real, because old buildings always had real issues. Joey fixed those, but many were suspiciously timed. Inspectors arrived with local reporters tipped off in advance. Anonymous complaints claimed Rivergate was unsafe, exploitative, and secretly funded by foreign money. Joey did not panic. He opened the doors. Every inspection report was published on Metro Ledger. Every violation, every correction deadline, every contractor payment, every worker safety upgrade. Joey invited employees to speak openly. He let cameras film the ugly parts, the leaks, the rust, the damaged floors. Then he showed the repair plans and the budgets. Damon had expected secrecy. Joey weaponized transparency. When reporters asked whether Rivergate was a public relations stunt, Joey took them to the old warehouse where he had first slept after buying it. He showed them the couch, the stained ceiling, and the first servers. He said this was not a miracle. It was what happens when people stop throwing away what rich men cannot immediately polish. That line traveled everywhere. Silver Ark's attacks began to look elitist. Rivergate's workers became proud. The city council, sensing public support, praised the project. The Transport Corridor Committee scheduled a formal hearing. Damon needed a new weapon. He found Selena. After Victor's removal, Selena's life collapsed in stages. Her promotion vanished. Her luxury image became a joke. Victor blamed her for leaking weakness, then stopped answering her calls. Former friends avoided being photographed with her. She tried to present herself as another victim of Astor Crown's toxic culture, but the clips made that hard. Still, she knew Joey. She knew his old habits, his mother's piano, his apartment, his insecurities, and the private tenderness he hated admitting. Damon offered her a deal. If she publicly accused Joey of emotional abuse and manipulation, Silver Ark would give her a new position, a clean media rollout and protection. Selena hesitated, not because of conscience, but because she feared Joey now. Damon told her Joey's mercy was temporary. Men like him always punished women who left. If she struck first, she could survive. Selena agreed. Her press conference was scheduled on the morning of the Transport Corridor hearing. Joey found out through the system only 6 hours before it happened. The dashboard flagged Silver Ark payments to a media trainer connected to Selena. It also detected draft statements full of vague accusations. No documents, just emotional language designed to poison public trust. The old Joey would have panicked. The new Joey called Anika, Helena, Mira, and Metro Ledger's editor. He asked for every fact-checked record of his financial support for Selena, her file access, her false invoices, and her direct quotes. Mira asked if he wanted to release everything. Joey said not everything, only what answered the lie. Selena stood before cameras in a navy dress and spoke in a trembling voice. She said powerful men often hide behind victim stories. She said Joey had controlled her through guilt and money. She said his revenge proved how dangerous he was. She said she had feared him long before choosing Victor. For a moment, the public wavered. The image was powerful. A tearful woman speaking against a man now gaining money and influence. Joey knew exactly why Damon chose this weapon. It forced him into a trap. If he attacked Selena too harshly, he would look cruel. If he stayed silent, suspicion would grow. So Joey answered with receipts, but not rage. Metro Ledger published a timeline titled Financial Claims and Documented Conduct in the Manhwa Dispute. It showed that Joey paid for Selena's certification after she requested help. It showed messages where she thanked him and promised repayment after promotion. It showed she accessed Joey's Northbridge drafts before Victor presented them. It showed her false invoice approvals. It showed the video where she mocked using his loyalty. It showed her new media trainer was paid by a Silver Ark linked account. Joey issued only one sentence. I will not let the person who sold my work sell my pain too. The sentence did what anger could not. Selena's press conference collapsed under questions. Who paid the media trainer? Why did she approve client charges for personal luxury? Why did she access Joey's files? Why did she laugh in Victor's office? She tried to say the clips lacked context. A reporter asked what context made Loyal Dog acceptable. Selena left through a side door. Damon lost the morning. Joey won the hearing at City Hall. He presented Rivergate not as a charity story, but as a business engine. He showed delivery data from dockline flow, employment numbers, vendor repayment schedules, tax projections, and community repair plans. He brought workers, small business tenants, and former Astor Crown juniors who had retrained at the center. He did not beg for approval. He demonstrated value. Damon's representative argued that Rivergate was unstable and untested. Joey answered every concern with records. When asked how a district built from $1 acquisitions could be trusted, Joey said the $1 price did not represent the value of the asset. It represented the blindness of the people who abandoned it. The Transport Corridor Committee voted to include Rivergate in the preferred route study. Rivergate property values surged again. Harbor Vale's balance sheet transformed overnight. Astor Crown's debt became manageable because Joey converted vendor settlements into long-term service agreements. Dockline flow attracted investment interest. Metro Ledger subscriptions rose, the print shop expanded. The catering company signed event contracts with 3 universities. The training center received workforce grants. Joey's empire was still fragile, but it was real. Every business move felt like revenge, because every repaired asset contradicted the insult that started it. Broke, they had called him broke while they stood on stolen credit. Now Joey owned the roads under their deliveries, the paper under their proposals, the archive under their reputations, the training under their staff, and the company name they used to mock him. But emotional payoff still waited in one place: his mother's piano. The pawnbroker who bought it had sold it to a luxury hotel lounge. Joey found the record after searching for weeks. The piano sat in the corner of a marble bar, played by strangers, while wealthy guests talked over the music. It had scratches on the side from Joey's childhood apartment. His mother had taught him scales on that piano. After she died, he kept it as long as he could. Selling it for Selena's ring had felt like turning memory into a future. Now it felt like memory had been stolen twice. Joey went to the hotel and asked to buy it back. The manager said it was not for sale. The system scanned the hotel lounge. Eligible distressed asset detected. Not the hotel. The lounge operating contract. It was losing money, kept alive only because executives liked the image of real musicians in the corner. The contract holder had unpaid entertainment taxes and a negative valuation. Acquisition price, $1. Joey almost laughed. He bought the lounge contract. By the end of the week, Harbor Vale Hospitality controlled the lounge's entertainment operations. Joey did not fire the musicians. He raised their pay, changed the schedule, and bought the piano from the hotel at fair valuation through the contract transfer. Then he had it moved to Rivergate's training center, into a renovated hall where workers could gather after shifts and local students could take lessons. The day it arrived, Joey stood before it for a long time. He touched the worn wood. For once, the system said nothing. Mira stood at the doorway. She asked if he played. Joey said badly. She said that never stopped anyone worth hearing. He sat and played the only piece he remembered fully. His fingers stumbled. The notes were uneven, but the sound filled the hall, soft and imperfect, and something in him finally loosened. He had bought companies, warehouses, debts, software, and reputations for $1. But getting the piano back felt like recovering the part of himself that had been sold before the system ever appeared. That evening, employees gathered without being asked. Some listened from the hallway. Morris came with his wife. Jenna stood near the back, quiet and ashamed but present. Mark arrived in a delivery uniform, hands rough from real work, and Nika from Northbridge sent flowers. Helena sent a brief message that said restoration is a rarer skill than victory. Joey played until he could not remember why he used to think silence was strength. Then Victor returned, not physically at first, through lawsuits. He filed claims against Joey, Astor Crown, Harbor Vale, Helena Morris, and even Metro Ledger. The lawsuits accused Joey of conspiracy, illegal seizure, defamation, emotional distress, and interference with Selena. Most were weak, but lawsuits could drain time and money. Damon quietly funded them through cutouts. Victor became a weapon pointed by a man smarter than him. Joey expected it. The system found a new distressed asset linked to the legal war, an old litigation finance contract from Victor's first failed company. Years earlier, Victor had accepted funding in exchange for a share of future claims and settlements, then defaulted it. The rights had passed through collection agencies until they became worthless because no one thought Victor would ever have valuable claims. Acquisition price, $1. Joey bought the right to portions of Victor's litigation recovery. When Victor's lawyer filed aggressive settlement demands, Joey's counsel responded that any recovery might trigger obligations to a creditor, now controlled by Harbor Vale. Victor would be paying Joey from any lawsuit he won. The strategy backfired so elegantly that even Helena called it poetic. But Damon still had resources. Silver Arc launched a hostile client campaign against Harbor Vale. They offered discounts, spread doubts, and tried to poach Joey's new staff. They targeted Mira especially, offering her a salary far beyond what Harbor Vale could pay. Mira brought the offer to Joey instead of hiding it. Joey read it and said she should consider it. Myra looked insulted. He said seriously, it was life-changing money. Myra said she knew. Then she said Silver Arc wanted to buy the engine after mocking the garage. She was not interested in being their hood ornament. Joey smiled. He offered her equity in Dockline Flow based on performance milestones. Not as a favor, but because she had built value. Mira accepted. That decision became another internal legend. At Victor's Astor Crown, loyalty was demanded and exploited. At Joey's Harbor Vale, value created ownership. Employees noticed. Silver Arc's poaching campaign failed with the best people and succeeded only with the shallowest. Joey let them go. He understood now that loyalty based on fear created future betrayal. Loyalty based on shared upside created roots. Damon escalated to capital pressure. He convinced a major bank to withdraw a pending credit facility. Harbor Vale had payroll covered, but expansion plans depended on that line. Without it, Rivergate cleanup would slow, dockline flow infrastructure would stall, and Astor Crown's recovery would remain vulnerable. Joey needed capital without surrendering control to the same elite circles that hated him. The system scanned. No immediate $1 solution. That frightened him more than enemies did. For 2 nights, Joey barely slept. He walked through Rivergate after midnight, past glowing windows where people worked late by choice, not because Victor threatened them. He saw the print shop running sample books. He saw the kitchen preparing breakfast orders for schools. He saw trainees studying logistics dashboards. Every light was a promise. If he failed, people would say it proved men like Joey should never rise beyond their assigned floor. On the 3rd night, Morris found him in the loading yard. Morris said there might be another way. Before Victor, Astor Crown had maintained relationships with small local suppliers who were pushed aside when Victor chased luxury clients. Many were still alive, but barely. They trusted Joey because he paid vendors during restructuring. If Harbor Vale created a supplier bond, not a bank loan, those businesses might invest small amounts in exchange for guaranteed work, transparent returns, and shared district growth. Joey asked why Morris had never suggested ideas like that before. Morris looked ashamed. He said Victor preferred ideas he could steal. Joey brought the plan to Helena, Mira, Anika, and the Rivergate tenants. It was risky. It was slower than bank money. It required trust from people who did not have much cash to spare. But it fit Joey's philosophy. Do not beg at polished doors. Build a door from the hands that had been pushed out. Metro Ledger published the proposal openly. Harbor Vale Community Growth Notes. Minimum investment, $100. Backed by district revenues, not fake projections. Priority repayment after wages and safety reserves. Full quarterly reporting. Damon laughed on TV. He said Joey was crowdfunding a fantasy from people too poor to understand risk. That sentence did more for Joey than any advertisement could have. Small business owners who had been insulted by banks and exploited by firms like Silver Arc began buying notes. Retired workers bought small amounts. Former Astor Crown employees bought symbolic notes. Northbridge bought a large tranche after independent review. Helena invested personally. Mira invested part of her savings. Morris and his wife invested carefully. Joey bought one note himself. $100 this time. The raise did not make Harbor Vale rich overnight, but it saved the expansion. More importantly, it created an army of stakeholders. Damon could pressure one bank. He could not easily pressure hundreds of people who now wanted Rivergate to succeed. The public narrative shifted again. Joey was no longer just the betrayed office loser who got revenge. He was becoming the man who turned discarded assets and discarded people into a network strong enough to challenge old money. Damon felt his own clients watching. So he made his biggest mistake. He tried to buy Metro Ledger secretly. Silver Arc agents approached minority rights holders tied to the old newspaper archive, hoping to challenge Joey's ownership and seize editorial control. They thought the paper was still weak because it looked small. They did not understand that Joey had used the system to clean the debt chain. The attempt triggered a hidden buyout clause in one of the old archive agreements. Eligible defensive acquisition available. Remaining archive claims. Price, $1 each. Joey acquired the last pieces before Damon knew the trap had closed. Then Metro Ledger published an investigation into Silver Arc's media manipulation network. Unlike the pieces about Victor, this one was bigger. It showed how Silver Arc used friendly outlets, paid experts, and crisis consultants to shape procurement decisions. It traced attacks on Rivergate to shell groups funded by Silver Arc-aligned donors. It connected Damon to Victor's lawsuits through indirect payments. Demand denied everything. The article included documents. Clients began internal reviews. City council members demanded disclosure. The bank that withdrew Harbor Vale's credit line faced questions about outside pressure. Damon had spent decades making calls no one could prove. Joey did not need to prove every call. He only needed to show the pattern clearly enough that people started checking their own doors. Silver Arc stock in the private resale market dropped. Vendors demanded faster payment. Employees leaked more stories. The company was not yet distressed enough for the system, but cracks appeared. Victor saw Damon weakening and panicked. He tried to make his own deal. He contacted Joey through lawyers and offered testimony against Damon in exchange for protection from fraud referrals. Joey knew Victor would lie if it helped him. But truth from a selfish man could still be useful if chained to documents. They met in a legal office. Victor looked older. Without the car, the office, the watch, and the crowd, he seemed like a man wearing the memory of a costume. He tried to smile when Joey entered, but it failed. For a moment, Joey saw the bully not as a monster, but as an empty room full of mirrors. Victor had needed people to clap because silence showed him what he was. Victor said they both had been played by Damon. Joey said Victor had not been played when he stole payroll, kissed Selena in the conference room, and fired him publicly. Victor's jaw tightened. He said Joey had won. So what else did he want? Joey said repair. Victor laughed bitterly and said not everyone wanted to become a saint in a warehouse. Joey slid documents across the table. A cooperation agreement. Full testimony about Silver Arc, full admission of Astor Crown fraud, return of stolen funds where possible, surrender of claims, and a public apology to the employees he harmed. In exchange, Joey would not oppose reasonable settlement discussions in civil matters, though authorities would do what they did. Victor read the terms. He asked if Joey wanted him to crawl. Joey said no. Crawling would still make Victor the center of the room. He wanted him to tell the truth without applause. Victor signed because he had no better move. His public apology was not grand. Joey refused to let it become theater. Victor sat in a plain room with counsel and read a statement. He admitted he had taken credit for work he did not create. He admitted he had misused company funds. He admitted Joey's termination had been retaliation and humiliation disguised as management. He admitted Selena had helped misrepresent work. He admitted Silver Arc had discussed acquiring clients while Astor Crown was unstable. The video was released without music, edits, or dramatic framing. That plainness made it devastating. People expected Joey to enjoy it. He did not. He watched once, then filed it away. Revenge had been hot at first, then cold, then structural. Now it was becoming something heavier. The more enemies admitted truth, the more Joey had to decide what kind of man would remain when the shouting stopped. Selena requested a private meeting. Everyone advised against it. Mira said Selena would try to reopen the wound and climb through it. Helena said there was no strategic need. Morris said some accounts never balance if you keep adding entries. But Joey agreed, not because he owed Selena closure, but because a part of him needed to see whether the person he loved had ever existed. They met in the training center hall, near his mother's piano. Joey chose the place deliberately. Selena entered quietly without designer jewelry. She looked smaller, but Joey no longer trusted smallness as innocence. She saw the piano and understood. She said she did not know he had bought it back. Joey said there were many things she did not know because she stopped listening once she found a richer room. Selena flinched. For a while, she did what she always did. She softened her voice. She said she had been afraid. She said Joey's love had felt heavy because he sacrificed too much. She said Victor made her believe she deserved more. She said once the lies started, she could not find a way out. Joey listened. Then he asked when she first gave Victor his draft. Her face changed. The soft performance cracked. She looked toward the piano and whispered that it was before the engagement party. There it was, the final blade. Before the ring. Before Joey sold the piano. Before she promised forever in front of his friends, she had already been trading his future. Joey nodded slowly. Selena began crying. Not loudly, not for cameras. Maybe some of it was real. She said she was sorry. She said she hated herself when she watched the clips. She said she did not expect him to become powerful. Then she stopped, because the truth inside that sentence revealed too much. Joey said that was the problem. She was sorry because he became powerful. He needed her to understand. She should have been sorry when he was powerless. Selena covered her face. He removed the engagement ring from his pocket. He had carried it all this time, not because he wanted her back, but because the object had become a hook in his chest. He placed it on the piano. He said he sold his mother's music to buy her promise. She turned that promise into a receipt. So now the ring would no longer belong to a failed engagement. He would auction it for the intern repayment fund. Selena whispered his name. He said goodbye, Selena. No anger, no embrace, no second chance. She left through the front door, past trainees who did not know the entire history, but understood enough to step aside. Joey watched her go and felt something inside him finally stop reaching. The auction raised more than the ring was worth because people knew the story. Joey matched the amount through Harbor Vale, The fund repaid former interns who had worked unpaid overtime under Victor. Some sent messages, some cried. One wrote that, for the first time, her stolen nights had been acknowledged by someone with power. Joey printed that message and kept it in his desk. The system rewarded him again. Justice conversion achieved. New acquisition tier unlocked. Community distressed assets now eligible. The dashboard expanded beyond businesses. It showed abandoned clinics, closed schools, neglected housing complexes, and bankrupt local services. Joey stared at the map, overwhelmed. The world was full of things powerful people had marked worthless because the people who needed them had no lobby, no luxury image, and no loud champion. He could not save everything, but he could choose. Before he could act, Damon made his final move. Silverark announced a massive redevelopment proposal for the area surrounding Rivergate. It promised luxury offices, entertainment plazas, and innovation towers. The renderings were beautiful and empty. In the fine print, the plan required rerouting the transport corridor away from Joey's properties and condemning several Harbor Vale sites for infrastructure adjustment. Damon framed it as progress. He said Rivergate's current revival was charming but insufficient for a world-class city. The old money machine roared to life. Lobbyists praised Silverark. Influencers posted renderings. Business groups warned that Joey's community model could not scale. Damon appeared at a gala and said cities should not be held hostage by sentimental warehouse owners. Joey watched the speech with Mira, Helena, and Anika. Mira asked if the system could buy anything around the redevelopment plan. The system scanned for a long minute. Eligible asset detected: asset Grand Meridian Hotel events debt. Acquisition price, $1. Joey frowned. The Grand Meridian was where Damon would host the investor gala for the redevelopment launch. Its hotel was healthy, but its events subsidiary had suffered losses from unpaid corporate bookings, including one tied to Silverark. Joey could acquire control over event receivables and approval rights for certain contracted services. It seemed minor. Joey had learned minor assets could open major doors. For days, Metro Ledger and Harbor Vale's legal team had assembled the disclosures. The event rights did not create the evidence. They gave Joey authority to require it on the venue screens before investor solicitation began. He bought it. The gala was the kind of event Victor used to worship from outside the velvet rope. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, politicians, developers, bankers, reporters. Damon stood at the center in a black suit, smiling like the city had already signed itself over. Joey attended as the controlling stakeholder of several Rivergate properties, which annoyed Damon but could not be prevented. He wore a simple dark suit. Not cheap anymore, but not loud. Myra walked with him as Dockline Flow's chief technology officer. Helena came as Astor Crown's board chair. Annika came as Northbridge's director. The room noticed the office loser now entered with people whose signatures moved markets. Damon greeted him publicly with false warmth. He said he respected Joey's passion and hoped they could find a graceful transition for Rivergate. Joey said transitions were easier when the future consented. Damon smiled for cameras. Then the screens behind him flickered. The redevelopment presentation was supposed to begin with music and sweeping renderings. Instead, the first slide showed unpaid event receivables tied to Silverark-controlled entities, then consultant payments, then lobbying disclosures, then projected displacement numbers for current Rivergate workers, then internal Silverark notes describing Joey's tenants as low-resistance occupants and Rivergate employees as narrative obstacles. A murmur moved through the ballroom. Damon turned to the technical booth, furious. The event manager approached him and whispered that the event's receivable controller had required compliance disclosure before using the venue systems for investor solicitation. Damon hissed that he owned the room. The manager, trembling, said not the contracted event approval rights. Joey stood near the front, calm. The screens continued. They showed side-by-side comparisons. Silverark promised jobs, but its internal plan automated most operations. Silverark promised community space, but budget notes marked it as optional if subsidies fell. Silverark promised historical preservation, but demolition schedules targeted the old sign factory, the print shop, and the training center. Then came the final slide. Current Rivergate employment, wages protected. Current Rivergate vendor repayment, active current Rivergate training enrollment, growing. Current Rivergate tax contribution, rising. Question for investors: are you funding development or erasure? Reporters surged. Damon tried to take the microphone. It did not work because the event contract approval rights had frozen presentation controls pending disclosure review. The image of Damon tapping a dead microphone became the night's defining clip. It echoed Victor's locked slides at Northbridge, but bigger, richer, and more public. Joey did not speak from the stage. He did not need to. Every business move was revenge, and this one made Damon experience the same helplessness Victor felt when stolen work refused to open. Silverark's redevelopment proposal did not die that night, but it began bleeding. Investors demanded revisions. City council members distanced themselves. Rivergate workers protested with signs showing actual paychecks and training certificates, not slogans. Metro Ledger published the underlying documents. Other outlets followed because the story was too visible to ignore. Damon called Joey the next morning. No charm this time. He said Joey was turning the city against progress. Joey said Damon was confusing progress with ownership of other people's exits. Damon said everyone had a price. Joey said yes, and Damon's was finally public. Silverark's pressure campaign intensified for 2 weeks, then cracked. A major client paused its contract after discovering manipulation invoices. A bank demanded additional collateral. Former employees filed complaints. Damon tried to reassure investors, but the private resale value of Silverark debt fell sharply. Then the system chimed. Eligible distressed asset detected. Asset Silverark vendor debt. Tranche acquisition price $1. Joey stared at the screen. The enemy fortress had opened a side gate. He bought the tranche. It did not give him control of Silverark. Not yet, but it gave him standing. Information rights, payment pressure, a seat at the creditor table if things worsened. The $1 system had waited until Damon's fake stability became real distress. Joey's revenge had not forced the purchase through magic. It had exposed enough truth for the market to reprice arrogance. Helena said that was the most dangerous kind of victory. Joey asked why. She said because now he could become addicted to making enemies collapse. He thought about that. The system detected value others missed, but Joey chose where to aim it. If he only hunted people who hurt him, he would become Victor with better paperwork. If he only built noble projects and ignored predators, he would let Damon devour everything. Balance mattered, so did memory. Joey created a rule for Harbor Vale. No acquisition would be approved solely for revenge. Each had to restore value, protect honest stakeholders, or expose fraud. Personal satisfaction could be a side effect, never the business model. Mira called it the anti-Victor rule. It became company culture. Astor Crown's old office changed under that rule. The glass conference room where Joey had been betrayed became a transparent project review room. Credit on proposals had to list actual contributors. Junior staff could challenge ownership records. Expense reports became visible to department leads. Promotions required peer contribution audits. Some people hated it and left. Others flourished. One former intern named Lila Park presented a campaign idea that impressed Northbridge. Under Victor, someone would have stolen it. Under Joey's system, her name stayed on the work. When the client praised the concept, Lila cried in the restroom. Joey found out and sent her a message. Never apologize for seeing value first. She framed it. Stories like that spread further than any revenge clip. Joey's power became aspirational because it did not only crush villains, it changed what happened to people who used to be invisible. Still, the past returned in strange ways. One afternoon, Joey received a letter from Victor. Not a legal letter. Handwritten, the script was sharp and controlled at first, then messier near the end. Victor wrote that he hated Joey, then crossed it out. He wrote that he envied him. He wrote that the worst part was not losing the company, the car, or Selena. The worst part was realizing people respected Joey more after seeing him weak than they had respected Victor after years of pretending strength. Victor did not ask forgiveness. He asked whether the intern fund would accept money from the sale of his watch. Joey sat with the letter for a long time. He could have refused. The watch had been part of the costume, the same flash of silver Selena admired, but money that had symbolized arrogance could become repayment. Joey sent instructions through council. The fund accepted the donation without naming Victor as a hero. Revenge had taught Victor one honest transaction. That was enough. Selena's path was harder to watch. She disappeared from public life for a while. Then she took a junior role at a nonprofit business training program in another city. People accused her of image repair. Maybe it was survival. Months later, Joey received a repayment transfer for the certification fees he had paid years ago. No note, just the amount, with interest. He stared at it and felt no triumph, only a quiet closing. He donated it to the piano lesson program at Rivergate. The system did not chime. Some things did not need rewards. Damon, unlike Victor and Selena, did not soften. As Joey gained creditor standing in Silver Arc, Damon prepared a counterattack through politics. He backed a proposed ordinance that would restrict community note financing, claiming it protected small investors. In reality, it would choke Harborvale's funding model while leaving private clubs and large funds untouched. The ordinance was written in language too technical for public outrage. Joey nearly missed it. A retired teacher who had bought a small Harborvale note wrote to Metro Ledger asking if her investment would become illegal. The newsroom investigated and found the bill. Joey realized Damon had stopped trying to win headlines and returned to the quiet machinery where men like him were strongest. This battle would not be dramatic. No lock screen, no gala humiliation. It would be fought through definitions, committee meetings, and clauses. Joey prepared differently. He hired legal experts, but he also brought small investors to testify. The retired teacher, a bakery owner, a former printer, a delivery driver who had invested because Harborvale paid him on time when everyone else delayed. They explained that risk was real, but exclusion was also risk. Rich people were allowed to invest in private deals because they were assumed to understand opportunity. Poor and middle-income people were told protection meant being locked outside until value had already multiplied. Joey testified last. He said the ordinance did not protect people from fraud. It protected old gates from new keys. He supported stronger disclosure, plain language risk statements, and reserve requirements. But he opposed rules that said ordinary citizens could buy lottery tickets, payday loans, and overpriced products, yet could not invest a small amount in a district they could walk through and inspect. Metro Ledger streamed the hearing. The public paid attention because Joey had made financial structures emotional without making them simplistic. Damon expected boredom. Joey created understanding. The ordinance was amended until it no longer harmed Harborvale. Disclosure rules improved. Community financing survived. Damon lost quietly, which bothered him more than losing loudly. Silver Arc's debt worsened. The system offered another purchase. Asset, Silver Arc Regional Client Option Rights Acquisition Price, $1. Joey bought it. Now he could intercept certain client transitions if Silver Arc defaulted on performance guarantees. He did not force default. He waited. Dockline flow continued outperforming. Rivergate kept growing. Astor Crown recovered under clean management. Metro Ledger continued exposing manipulation in the industry. Silver Arc, used to winning through pressure rather than performance, began missing targets. One major client, Valorum Health, triggered a performance review. Silver Arc tried to blame market disruption caused by Harborvale. The client asked for data. Silver Arc had polished decks. Joey had delivery records, campaign performance, and transparent cost structures. Because of the option rights, Harborvale was allowed to submit a continuity proposal if Silver Arc failed cure terms. Damon called the client personally and promised miracles. Valorum asked Joey for a meeting. Joey brought Lila, Mira, and a logistics analyst who had once been an unpaid Astor Crown intern. He let them present, not because he wanted to appear humble, but because they knew the work. The client noticed at Silver Arc, juniors carried binders and seniors performed certainty. At Harborvale, the people who built the system explained it. Valorum transferred the contract. Silver Arc's revenue projection cracked. The system did not need to say anything. Joey knew the fortress was falling. Damon requested a private meeting. They met not in a club, but at Rivergate. Joey chose the old sign factory, now bright with designers and machines. Damon arrived in a dark car and stepped carefully around a patch of wet concrete. He looked at the workers, the exposed brick, the practical furniture. His face showed distaste before he controlled it. He said Joey had proven his point. Joey said people kept saying that when they wanted consequences to stop before reaching them. Damon said Silver Arc could sell Harborvale a minority partnership at favorable terms. He framed it as integration. Joey heard surrender disguised as elegance. Joey asked if Damon would admit to funding attacks, manipulating media, and backing the ordinance. Damon smiled thinly. He said, the world did not run on admissions, it ran on outcomes. Joey looked through the factory window at the district outside. Trucks moved. Students crossed between training buildings. Workers ate lunch under repaired awnings. None of it existed because Damon allowed it. It existed because people who were supposed to stay small had built something too useful to dismiss. Joey said outcomes were starting to testify. Damon left without a deal. A month later, Silver Arc defaulted on several vendor obligations. The creditor table convened. Joey now held enough distressed claims and option rights to influence restructuring. Other creditors did not love him, but they trusted his records more than Damon's promises. The proposed plan removed Damon from operational control, sold certain assets, protected regular employee wages, and transferred several client continuity contracts to Harbor Vale. Damon fought with everything he had. He argued legacy, reputation, relationships, market confidence. He said removing him would destroy Silver Arc's value. Joey answered with a report showing how much value had already been destroyed by preserving his image. The room went quiet. It was the same lesson as Victor, scaled up. Fake wealth is expensive because reality charges interest. Damon lost control. There was no dramatic security escort in the rain. Damon was too powerful for simple humiliation. His fall happened through signatures, creditor votes, resignation language, and carefully worded press releases. But Joey understood the deeper shame. Damon had spent his life deciding which assets mattered. In the end, he became a distressed asset inside a process led by the man he called sentimental. Joey did not buy Silver Arc whole. He bought the pieces that could be repaired. A research team with good analysts. A client services unit that had been pressured to lie but still had talent. A production studio with outdated equipment but skilled technicians. He left behind the vanity divisions, the manipulation network, and the executive club culture. Harbor Vale absorbed what had value and cut away what had rot. Some critics said Joey had become a corporate raider with a better sob story. He took the criticism seriously. Metro Ledger published independent audits of Harbor Vale acquisitions, including failures. Not every $1 purchase worked. A small app company had too much technical debt and had to be shut down. Though employees were helped into other jobs, a retail space revival failed because foot traffic never recovered. A manufacturing asset had environmental cleanup costs. Joey underestimated he did not hide these losses. That transparency made the successes more believable. The system rewarded not perfection but honest value restoration. New ability unlocked. Legacy audit. Joey could now scan not only distressed assets, but the histories of value extraction around them. It showed who had been unpaid, who had been displaced, who had signed away rights under pressure, and where repair could be meaningful. The first legacy audit he ran was on Astor Crown. The result was painful. There were more victims than he knew. Freelancers from years before. Vendors who closed after non-payment. Employees whose ideas became executive bonuses. Joey could not undo everything, but he created a claims process funded by recovered executive compensation, profits from revived assets, and a portion of Harbor Vale's growth notes revenue. It was not charity, it was back payment to the ecosystem that had been mined. People began sending stories with documentation. A designer recovered enough unpaid fees to clear medical debt. A small print vendor used settlement money to reopen a workshop. A former strategist received public attribution for a campaign that launched her new career. Joey read every report summary. He did not know all their faces, but he knew the feeling of being erased. His personal revenge had become collective correction. One night, long after Rivergate's transport corridor approval became final, Joey returned to Crown Line Tower. Astor Crown no longer occupied 3 luxury floors. It had moved most operations to Rivergate and kept only a small client office in the tower. The 27th floor was being leased by another company. The glass conference room was empty, lights off, furniture removed. Joey stood where Victor had kissed Selena, the city reflected in the glass. For a moment, he saw his old self holding the cardboard box, rain waiting outside, laughter pressing against his back. He wanted to tell that man something, not that everything would be fine. It had not been fine. Not that betrayal was a blessing. It was not. Betrayal was damage, and people who romanticize damage usually had not paid its full price. He wanted to tell him this. You were never cheap, because they could not see your value. The system chimed softly. No eligible asset detected. Joey smiled. For once, there was nothing to buy. But the story did not end in silence. Harbor Vale's rise attracted national attention. Investors who once ignored Joey now wanted meetings. Some were sincere. Many wanted to attach themselves to his reputation. A famous venture group offered a massive funding round for dockline flow, but the terms gave them control if growth targets were missed. Mira rejected it before Joey finished reading. She said they were just Victor with better stationery. They chose slower money again. Dockline flow expanded through paid pilots with regional ports, hospitals, and food distributors. The software was not glamorous, but it saved time, fuel, and spoiled inventory. Every efficiency created profit, and Joey insisted part of that profit support training pathways for workers displaced by automation. He understood the danger of becoming the thing he fought. Efficiency without dignity was just a cleaner knife. A Crown became Harbor Vale Creative, though Joey kept the old name archived as a reminder. The new creative company specialized in campaigns built from real operations, not fake lifestyle branding. Clients could not buy emotional stories unless their supply chain, labor practices, and payment terms could survive scrutiny. Some walked away. The ones who stayed became stronger. Metro Ledger grew into a respected investigative business platform. Joey placed it under a trust with editorial independence. After critics questioned ownership influence, the editor could investigate Harbor Vale too. Within a year, they did. They found a manager in the catering division pressuring staff to work unpaid preparation hours. Joey fired the manager, paid the workers, and published the correction. People expected him to bury it. He amplified it. He said, "Systems only matter when they cut the hand that owns the knife." That line became another Harbor Vale principle. Public humiliation changed shape around Joey. At first, people wanted to watch his enemies fall. Later, they wanted to see whether power would corrupt him. Joey did not pretend immunity. He built processes because he knew he was human. He had felt the pleasure of seeing Victor helpless. He had felt the temptation to destroy Selena beyond necessity. He had wanted Damon to kneel. Those feelings did not make him evil. Letting them drive the company would. Mara became his closest partner, though not in the simple romantic way gossip accounts tried to force. They trusted each other first. They argued fiercely. She told him when he was confusing symbolism with strategy. He told her when she was underestimating politics because code made more sense than people. Over time, respect became warmth. Warmth became something quieter than the drama that had once consumed his life. When rumors began, Joey refused to feed them. He had learned that love displayed for status becomes a hostage. Whatever grew between them did so away from cameras, in late meals at Rivergate, in piano lessons she teased him about, in shared exhaustion after board meetings, in the way she never asked him to prove he was enough. One evening, after a major dockline contract closed, Mira found him in the piano hall. He was playing better now, though still unevenly. She listened until he stopped. She said he had improved. He said the piano had lowered its standards. She laughed, and he realized how different that sound felt from Selena's laughter in the Office clip. Mira's laugh did not make him smaller. It made the room larger. He asked if she ever regretted staying when Silver Arc offered more. Mira said wealth was not only salary, it was ownership of what your work becomes. It was sleeping without wondering which executive would steal your name by morning. It was building something that did not require you to become hollow to survive. Joey looked at the piano keys. He said he was still afraid of becoming hollow. Mira said fear was useful if he kept listening to it. The $1 system remained mysterious. Joey never found its source. It did not explain why it chose him, who built it, or whether others had similar systems. Sometimes he wondered if it was supernatural. Sometimes it felt like a metaphor made operational, a machine that saw what capitalism pretended not to see. Distress was not the same as worthlessness. Price was not the same as value. Ownership was not the same as leadership. The system's missions became harder as Harbor Vale grew. It no longer offered simple revenge targets. It offered tangled assets where every choice had trade-offs. An abandoned clinic could be bought for $1, but reopening it required licenses, doctors, insurance, and political fights. A neglected housing complex could be acquired through distressed debt, but tenants feared displacement because they had heard promises before. A failing school building could become a training center, but the community wanted guarantees it would not become another polished project for outsiders. Joey moved carefully. The housing complex became his hardest test. It was called Merrill Court, a set of aging apartment buildings near Rivergate. The landlord had extracted rent for years without repairs, then defaulted when violations piled up. The city considered demolition. Developers wanted the land, tenants expected everyone to lie. The system offered a control claim for $1. Joey bought it, then walked the buildings himself. Elevators failed. Paint peeled. Pipes groaned. Children played near broken railings. An elderly tenant named Mrs. Alvarez told him she had seen men with nice shoes before. They all called the building a problem. None asked who still called it home. Joey asked. That was the beginning. Harbor Vale created a tenant council with real veto rights over redevelopment plans. It published repair budgets. It capped rent increases. It used Rivergate contractors and training center graduates for renovations under licensed supervision. Progress was slow, messy, and criticized from all sides. Developers said he left money on the table. Activists said they did not trust any owner. Tenants argued among themselves. Costs rose. Joey nearly quit the project twice. Then one winter morning, the heat system worked in every building for the first time in years. Mrs. Alvarez brought him a paper cup of coffee and said one sentence, "Maybe $1 can buy a promise if the right person pays the rest." Joey kept that sentence too. Meanwhile, Selena's name faded from headlines, but not from his memory. Healing did not erase. It rearranged. He no longer saw her in every betrayal, but sometimes a perfume in an elevator or a white suit in a lobby tightened his chest. He learned not to hate himself for that. The body remembers faster than pride. One day, a package arrived at Rivergate. Inside was a small music book, old and worn, with his mother's name written on the first page. Selena had found it among things she took from their apartment by mistake. There was no dramatic letter, just a note that said, "This belongs with the piano. I'm sorry for keeping it." Joey sat with the book for a long time, then he placed it on the piano. He did not forgive her fully, he did not need to decide that day, but he accepted the return of what was his. Victor, after legal settlements and public disgrace, found work at a small compliance office far from the city center. It was not glamorous. He reviewed documents. He had a supervisor who did not care about his old title. Some online accounts mocked him when they found out. Joey said nothing. The intern fund had received the watch money. The testimony had been useful. The rest of Victor's punishment was living without the illusion that cruelty was strength. Damon retired publicly for health reasons. Though everyone in business knew it was forced, he kept wealth because men like Damon rarely lose everything, but he lost the thing he valued most, the assumption that rooms would rearrange themselves around his comfort. Silver Arc survived in reduced form under new oversight, with several divisions absorbed by Harbor Vale or competitors. Its manipulation network became a cautionary case in business schools. Joey was invited to speak at one of those schools. He almost declined. Then he remembered the students who would soon enter offices full of Victors and Selenas and Damons. He stood in a lecture hall wearing no flashy watch and told the story without turning himself into a saint. He said he had been humiliated. He said revenge saved him from despair at first. He said money was power, but money without memory repeats the violence that created the wound. He said the most dangerous lie in business is that value belongs to whoever can take credit fastest. A student asked if he believed humiliation was necessary for greatness. Joey said no. He said people love stories where pain becomes fuel because it makes the pain seem fair. But pain is not fair. Betrayal is not tuition. Nobody should need to be broken to become visible. The goal is not to glorify the fire. The goal is to build a world where fewer people are thrown into it. That answer went viral for different reasons. It was not a clapback. It was not a revenge line. It was the kind of sentence people saved quietly. The system issued a rare message that night. Value philosophy stabilized. Owner growth recognized. New option, succession planning. Joey stared at it and laughed softly. The system that began with $1 and revenge was now asking what would happen after him. That felt absurd until he remembered how many companies had collapsed because one arrogant person became the entire structure. Victor was Aster Crown. Damon was Silver Arc. Joey could not let Harbor Vale become Joey. He began distributing authority. Myra led Dockline Flow with a real board. Helena oversaw governance across the holding company. Anika joined as strategic advisor after leaving Northbridge. Morris trained finance teams in ethical controls. Lila led a creative division built around attribution. Tenant councils gained formal power. Employee equity pools expanded. Metro Ledger's trust became legally insulated. The piano hall became a foundation for arts, training, and worker education. Joey remained central, but no longer singular. That was another defeat of the insult deeper than applause. Broke men cling to control when they finally get it because they fear returning to nothing. Joey learned that real wealth could be shared without disappearing. Years after the firing, Crown Line Tower hosted a business ethics summit. The organizers invited Joey to receive an award. He disliked awards, especially after owning two with someone else's name printed over his work. But the summit was raising money for wage theft recovery, so he agreed. The event took place in the same tower lobby where Victor's car had been repossessed. Joey arrived early and stood near the doors. Rain fell outside softer than that first night. The lobby had changed its screens. No Aster Crown slogans. No Victor smiling from promotional videos. Just event signage, polished floors, and people rushing through their own stores. A young office worker stood under the awning with a cardboard box in her arms, crying silently. Joey noticed because memory notices its own shape. He walked over and asked if she needed help. She startled, then recognized him. Her face flushed with embarrassment. She said she had just been fired after reporting that her manager stole her project. She tried to laugh it off and said it was stupid. She should have known better. People like her never win. Joey looked at the box. A mug, a plant, a notebook. The ordinary evidence of a life interrupted. He did not tell her everything would be fine. He did not tell her betrayal was a blessing. He gave her a business card for Harbor Vale's worker rights clinic, which had grown from the legacy audit program. He said, bring documents, names, dates, drafts, and anything that proves the work. He said, even if no one buys your value today, that does not mean it is worthless. She looked at the card, then at him. She asked why he cared. Joey looked out at the rain. He said someone should have cared sooner. Inside the summit, Joey accepted the award with a speech that lasted less than 3 minutes. He said the award belonged to every unpaid intern, every ignored worker, every vendor forced to beg for money owed, every tenant told their home was a problem, every junior employee whose idea was stolen by someone with a better suit. He said Harbor Vale began with $1, but the real cost had been paid by people whose value was hidden until someone wanted to profit from it. He did not mention Victor, Selena, or Damon by name. They were no longer the center. After the speech, he returned to Rivergate instead of attending the private dinner. The district glowed in the evening. The transport station was under construction. The old sign factory had a mural painted by local students. The catering kitchen smelled like bread. The training center windows were bright. Merrill Court's repaired balconies held plants. The piano hall was open, and someone was practicing scales badly. Joey stood outside and listened. Mira joined him with 2 paper cups of coffee. She handed him one. She said the student was improving. Joey said the piano had learned patience. They stood together without needing to fill the silence. Then his phone chimed. The $1 acquisition system displayed a new asset, Old Community Theater. Closed for bankruptcy, public value ignored. Acquisition price, $1. Joey looked across Rivergate at the people moving through the world he had helped build from discarded things. The old hunger for revenge was still there somewhere, a coal instead of a wildfire. He did not deny it. He honored it by refusing to let it drive alone. Mira glanced at the screen and asked if it was another ghost. Joey smiled. He said maybe it was another future. Someone priced wrong. He pressed. Yes, the purchase went through. $1 transferred, and somewhere in the city, another locked door quietly changed owners. The theater sat 3 blocks beyond the edge of Rivergate, wedged between a pawn shop and a closed pharmacy. Its marquee had missing letters, so the old name, Starlight, looked like it had been chewed by time. Rainwater pooled in the lobby. The seats smelled of dust. The stage curtains hung like tired lungs. Developers had ignored it because the building was too small for luxury apartments and too damaged for easy conversion. The city had ignored it because arts funding always came after emergencies. Joey walked through with the former manager, a thin man named Peter Ahn, who kept apologizing for things he no longer controlled. Peter said the theater used to host school plays, immigrant music nights, local debates, and cheap film festivals. Then rent rose around it, donors vanished, and a corporate sponsor promised renovation money in exchange for naming rights. The sponsor never paid. The theater borrowed to survive missed payments and fell into default. Joey asked who the sponsor was. Peter looked away. Silver Arc Cultural Futures. Damon's old network again. Even after falling, men like Damon left fingerprints in the dust of places they never cared to remember. The system's legacy audit showed the sponsor had used the theater's community reputation for a public relations campaign, then abandoned it when tax benefits changed. The defaulted loan made the theater look irresponsible. The truth was uglier. The theater had been used as decoration by wealthy people who wanted applause for promises, not responsibility for follow-through. Joey bought the loan claim for $1, but repairing the theater would cost far more. Harbor Vale could afford it, but he refused to treat every community asset as a trophy. He called a meeting in the dusty auditorium. Former performers, teachers, shop owners, students, and residents came because rumors traveled fast now whenever Joey bought a forgotten place. He stood on the stage under a broken spotlight and said the theater could reopen only if the community wanted governance, not just nostalgia. Harbor Vale would fund emergency repairs, but programming, access, and future revenue would be shared through a local board. No luxury renaming, no fake sponsor wall. Every donor promise would be legally binding and publicly tracked. An elderly musician asked if that meant rich people were not welcome. Joey said rich people were welcome to pay what they promised. The room laughed. That laugh felt clean. Starlight became Harbor Vale's next public project, but Joey made sure it did not become another story about him. Metro Ledger covered the sponsor history and the new governance model. Dockline Flow donated scheduling tools for events. The print shop made posters at cost. The training center built apprenticeships in lighting, sound, and stage management. Merrill Court children painted lobby tiles. Mira designed a digital ticketing system simple enough for older residents to use. The first reopening event was a concert played on Joey's mother's piano. He hesitated before agreeing. The piano had already traveled through too much symbolism, but the Rivergate music students wanted it, and the hall at the training center could lend it for one night. Joey watched as movers rolled it onto the restored stage. The scratches on his side caught the light. He touched the wood, then stepped back. This time he did not play. A 12-year-old girl from Merrill Court played. Badly at first, then bravely. The audience clapped like she had filled the room with gold. Joey sat in the back beside Mira, and something about the sound made him think of the day he sold the piano for the ring. Back then, he believed sacrifice meant giving away something precious, so love could grow somewhere else. Now he understood sacrifice without truth became extraction, but shared sacrifice chosen freely could build rooms where others found their own music. After the concert, Peter Ahn cried in the lobby. He told Joey he had spent years feeling like he failed the theater. Joey said failure and abandonment were not the same. Peter had stayed after the sponsors left. That mattered. The system chimed, community asset restored. Emotional value multiplier achieved. Joey shook his head, smiling. Even the system sounded moved in its strange mechanical way, but success brought a new class of enemy. Not people like Victor, who flaunted stolen shine. Not people like Damon, who controlled old gates. These were admirers. They were more dangerous in a different way. A group of young entrepreneurs began copying the $1 story without understanding it. They bought distressed businesses for symbolic prices, fired workers, stripped assets, and posted videos about being the next Joey Manhwa. They used phrases like hidden value and revenge capitalism. They wore cheap suits in the rain for dramatic clips. They claimed cruelty was necessary because Joey had taught the world that losers could become kings. Joey was disgusted. Metro Ledger exposed several of them, but the trend spread. People love shortcuts. They loved the aesthetic of reversal more than the labor of repair. Joey saw his story being turned into the very thing he hated, a mask for extraction. He addressed it publicly at Starlight. No stage lights, no dramatic entrance, just Joey standing before a community audience and business reporters. He said buying a dying company for $1 did not make someone a visionary. It made them responsible for everything others abandoned. He said if you buy distress and sell the bones, you're not restoring value. You're feeding on a body. He said revenge without repair is just cruelty with better branding. A reporter asked if he regretted making his story public. Joey said the story was never clean. People chose which parts to imitate. His job was to make the truth louder than the costume. That night, the system displayed a warning: reputation distortion risk, recommended action, codify acquisition ethics. Joey gathered his leadership team. They spent months writing the Harbor Vale Distress Acquisition Charter. It required wage audits, stakeholder mapping, transparent creditor treatment, environmental review, community impact assessment, and personal conflict disclosure before any purchase. If an acquisition involved someone who had personally harmed a Harbor Vale leader, an independent committee had to approve it. Mira teased him that he had invented paperwork to stop himself from becoming dramatic. Joey said paperwork had saved him from Victor. Helena said good paperwork was civilization wearing reading glasses. The charter became public. Other firms mocked it as idealistic until clients began asking whether their vendors had similar standards. Then the mockery became imitation. Not perfect imitation, but enough to shift expectations. Business schools studied it. Worker groups criticized weaknesses and improved it. Municipal agencies borrowed parts. Joey's revenge had moved from a personal story to a governance model. That should have made him proud. It mostly made him tired. Power did not end conflict. It multiplied the number of rooms where people expected answers. Joey began taking one quiet morning each week at the piano hall. No meetings. No calls unless something was burning. He played from his mother's music book, sometimes badly, sometimes well enough that students stopped teasing him. On one of those mornings, he found a note tucked between the pages. It was from Mira. It said, "Value is also rest." He read it 3 times and left it there. Around that time, the young office worker he had met at Crown Line Tower came to the clinic. Her name was Nora Yim. She brought drafts, emails, and timestamp files proving her project had been stolen by a senior manager at a financial technology company. The company was not distressed. The system offered no purchase, but Harbor Vale's clinic helped her file claims, contact other employees, and protect her work. The case grew. The financial technology company tried to settle quietly with a non-disclosure agreement. Nora refused after Joey explained the trade-offs. Not because public battle was always better, but because other workers had similar stories. Metro Ledger investigated and found a pattern of idea theft from junior analysts. The company's valuation dropped after the article. The system scanned. Still not distressed. Joey smiled. Not every victory needed acquisition. Sometimes exposure was enough. Nora later joined Harbor Vale's attribution rights team. She helped build software that tracked authorship and contribution in creative and technical projects. It became one of Harbor Vale's most quietly powerful products. Companies adopted it to prevent disputes, but workers loved it because it made erasure harder. Joey watched Nora present the product at a conference and felt the old reign recede another inch. Someone had cared sooner. The more Harbor Vale grew, the more Joey's father appeared in interviews, though he had been absent for most of Joey's life. He gave vague statements about always believing in his son. Gossip outlets found him. He hinted at reconciliation. Joey ignored it until his father arrived at Rivergate without an appointment. His name was Raymond Manhwa. He had left when Joey was young, chasing business schemes that never worked. Joey's mother raised him alone and played piano in restaurants to cover rent. Raymond now wore a faded suit and carried himself with the pride of a man who had rehearsed apologies without changing. He said he wanted to see what his son had built. Joey allowed a brief walk. Raymond praised the district too loudly. He said business talent ran in the family. He said he had once almost closed a major deal, but partners betrayed him. He said Joey understood now how cruel the world was to men with vision. Joey stopped walking. He realized his father was not there to apologize. He was there to claim reflected greatness, to turn Joey's work into proof that he had mattered. Raymond eventually asked for a position, something advisory, public-facing. He said people loved family stories. Joey looked at the repaired buildings, the workers, the training center, the theater posters, the homes with heat. He thought of his mother at the piano, tired hands moving because Raymond had not stayed. He said no. Raymond's face hardened. He said Joey had become arrogant. He said a son owed his father respect. He said, without the Manhwa name, Joey would be nothing. The old Joey might have argued. The new Joey understood some debts were forged by blood, but voided by abandonment. He said his mother made the name worth carrying. Then he walked away. Raymond gave one bitter interview, then vanished when public sympathy did not follow him. Joey felt grief afterward, not because he wanted the man back, but because part of every abandoned child keeps a chair empty longer than it should. Mira found him in the piano hall that evening. He told her the story. She listened without trying to repair it. Then she said his mother would probably be annoyed that he still played the left hand too softly. Joey laughed until the ache changed shape. The $1 system remained quiet for several weeks after that. Harbor Vale's existing projects demanded attention. Rivergate's transport station broke ground. Merrow Court completed its second renovation phase. Starlight hosted a business ethics debate where former rivals sat on stage and argued under community rules. Dockline flow expanded to another region. Harbor Vale Creative won awards that listed actual teams by name. Then a new asset appeared. Asset, Crown Line Tower service contractor, collective claim, acquisition price. $1, Joey frowned. Crown Line Tower again. The building that had hosted his humiliation still outsourced cleaning, security, and maintenance to a contractor that was collapsing under wage claims. The workers who cleaned the floors beneath elite companies were underpaid, misclassified, and invisible. The claim was considered worthless because the contractor had no assets and the tower owners denied responsibility. Joey acquired it. This revenge was subtle. Crown Line Tower had watched him leave with a box. Its polished lobby had reflected his shame. Now he would make the tower answer for the people who made it shine. The case was complex. Tower ownership hid behind layers. Contractor records were messy. Workers feared retaliation. Joey's legal team built pressure through documentation, public reporting, and tenant embarrassment. Metro Ledger published a feature not about Joey, but about night cleaners who could not afford transit after late shifts. One cleaner had seen Joey fired years ago. She remembered because he had thanked her for mopping around his desk during overnight work. Victor had never looked at her once. That detail hit Joey hard. The building had not been empty during his humiliation. Invisible witnesses had been there too. Harbor Vale negotiated a settlement that created back pay, direct employment standards, and a worker oversight committee for building services. Crown Line Tower's elite tenants hated the publicity, but accepted the changes to protect their own brands. At the signing ceremony, the cleaner who remembered Joey shook his hand. She said, "People like us are always in the background until someone needs a floor to sparkle." Joey said backgrounds hold the whole picture up. That night, he stood outside Crown Line Tower under the same awning as before. Rain fell again, because the city seemed to enjoy repetition. But this time, cleaners left through the front doors with settlement packets and new contracts. Security guards nodded to him not as enforcers of someone else's humiliation, but as workers whose wages were now protected. The loop closed deeper than Victor's removal ever had. Joey's first revenge had made the people who mocked him realize he owned their future. This one made him realize the future was not worth owning unless the people holding it up were seen. Years turned the legend into history. New employees joined Harbor Vale who had never seen the firing clip except in orientation ethics training. To them, Joey was a founder, not a broken man in the rain. That unsettled him. Legends simplify. They sand away the shame, the doubt, the bad nights, the almost cruel choices, the loneliness after victory. Joey insisted orientation include failures, not just wins. The app company shutdown, the retail revival loss, the catering labor violation, his near overreaction to Selena, his initial desire to destroy rather than repair. Some executives advised him not to expose weakness. Joey remembered Victor saying weak performers. He exposed it anyway. Harbor Vale's culture became strong because it refused to pretend strength meant flawlessness. Employees could challenge leadership decisions through formal review. Acquisition teams had red flag authority. Worker councils had budget visibility. Clients had to accept audit rights. This made growth slower. It also made collapse less likely. The system seemed to approve. Sustainable value network achieved, but one message remained locked. Final acquisition test unavailable. Joey wondered about it for months. Then the economy shifted. A credit downturn hit the city. Companies that looked healthy became vulnerable. Distress appeared everywhere. The system flooded with eligible assets, more than Joey could handle. The temptation was enormous. For $1 each, he could acquire pieces of restaurants, clinics, software firms, studios, contractors, apartment blocks, and competitors. Harbor Vale could become a giant. Helena warned him that downturns reveal whether principles are decoration. Mira said the system was offering a buffet during a famine. Joey convened an emergency ethics council. They ranked opportunities by stakeholder harm, repair feasibility, strategic fit, and risk of concentration. They rejected profitable acquisitions that would displace communities. They accepted unglamorous ones that protected essential services. Joey passed on a chance to acquire a rival creative firm whose chief had mocked him publicly, because the acquisition would mainly satisfy pride and create layoffs. He accepted a failing medical supply warehouse because hospitals needed it. The system reacted after that decision. Final acquisition test, unlocked asset, personal grievance portfolio. Description: all remaining claims, grudges, symbolic assets, and revenge opportunities tied to initial betrayal. Acquisition price: $1. Joey stared at the words. The system was offering to package his past, Victor's residual obligations, Selena's media rights exposure, Damon's old personal guarantees, Crown Line humiliation footage licensing, Astor Crown legacy claims that could still generate lawsuits, settlements, and public leverage. It was a portfolio of pain still valuable in the attention economy. He could buy it for $1 and keep monetizing the betrayal forever. Documentaries, licensing, lawsuits, speaking tours, revenge-branded funds. The Office loser story could become an industry. People would pay. The system projected significant returns. For a moment, Joey saw how easy it would be. Pain was an asset people never stopped buying. Then he looked around the council room. Mira, Helena, Morris, Lila, Nora, tenant representatives, Worker advocates, people who had built something beyond the first wound. If he acquired the grievance portfolio, he would keep the betrayal alive as a revenue stream. Victor, Selena, Damon, and the office laughter would remain central because their cruelty would still feed the brand. Joey pressed decline. The system asked for confirmation. He pressed decline again. A final message appeared. Personal grievance portfolio abandoned. Revenge loop completed. Ownership maturity recognized. The screen went dark. For the first time since the rain, the $1 acquisition system disappeared. Joey waited for panic. Instead, he felt relief. The system had not left him poor. It had left him with companies, people, rules, scars, and choices. Maybe it had always been training wheels for a man who needed one impossible purchase to believe the world's prices could be challenged. Maybe it would return if needed. Maybe someone else, somewhere under another awning, was seeing those glowing words for the first time. Joey did not know. He no longer needed to. The next day, he paid full price for an asset. Not because he had to, because he wanted to prove he could. A small family bookstore near Starlight was closing. It was not eligible for the system because its value was not hidden. Everyone knew it mattered. It simply needed a buyer willing to accept modest returns. Joey purchased it at fair value from the owners, kept them employed part-time, and converted the back room into a worker education library. No $1 miracle, no revenge target, just value honored before collapse. When reporters asked why that purchase mattered, Joey said the best world is not one where every abandoned thing can be bought for $1. The best world is one where fewer things are abandoned. That became the closing line of a documentary he reluctantly allowed. Under strict conditions that workers, tenants, and partners received more screen time than him. The documentary included the betrayal clip, but not as entertainment. It showed how easily a room can become a weapon when everyone laughs with power. It showed the system message only through Joey's description, because he had never been able to prove the supernatural part to anyone's satisfaction. It showed Rivergate, Merrill Court, Starlight, Dockline Flow, Metro Ledger, Harbor Vale Creative, the Piano Hall, and the Crown Line Cleaners. At the premiere, Joey sat in the back. When the scene of Selena returning the ring appeared, the audience went silent. Joey watched his younger self on screen, holding the box, eyes empty. He did not feel shame this time. He felt tenderness. That man had not known he was standing at the beginning of a door. After the film, a panel moderator asked Joey what he would say to Victor if they met again. Joey thought about it. He said nothing. The moderator seemed surprised. Joey explained that silence used to be what he swallowed because he had no power. Now silence could be what he chose because the debt was paid. Mira squeezed his hand under the table. The audience did not see. Good. Not everything valuable needed to become public. Late that night, Joey returned alone to the East Dock warehouse, the first asset after Astor Crown. It was no longer abandoned. It was the heart of Dockline Flow's operations. But the old corner office where he once slept had been preserved by the team as a kind of unofficial museum. He found the original cardboard box there. Someone had saved it, the cracked mug, the overwritten awards. The plant, now huge because Lila had secretly cared for it. The photo of him and Selena was gone, replaced by a framed copy of the first vendor payment confirmation. Joey laughed softly. On the desk lay a single dollar bill under glass. Not the actual one that had disappeared into whatever channel the system used, but symbolic enough. He lifted the glass, took out the bill, and placed it in his wallet. The next morning, he lent it to Nora for the Worker Rights Clinic's first national branch. She said she could not take his lucky dollar. Joey said luck was only useful when spent, and borrowed luck should come back with interest. The branch opened in another city with a mural of a cracked phone, a cardboard box, and a door opening into light. Joey found it too dramatic. Everyone else loved it. After the ceremony, Nora returned the bill in a small envelope with a note from the new clinic team. It said the first case had already been filed. Life continued, which was the part revenge stories often forget. There were budgets, illnesses, hiring mistakes, lawsuits, weddings, funerals, contract disputes, broken pipes, bad coffee, brilliant ideas, boring meetings, and days when Joey felt like an imposter wearing stability. But there were also mornings when Rivergate smelled of bread and machine oil, afternoons when students filled Starlight, evenings when the piano hall echoed with imperfect music, and nights when Joey walked home without feeling chased by the office laughter. One spring, Harbor Vale held an anniversary gathering in the district square. No luxury gala, food from the catering company, posters from the print shop, performances from Starlight, demonstrations from dockline flow, booths for tenants, suppliers, worker clinics, and small investors. People brought children, grandparents, neighbors, and dogs. The event was messy and alive. Morris gave a speech about finance controls that was somehow moving, because everyone knew what it cost him to stop being silent. Jenna, now working in compliance media documentation, spoke about the difference between recording harm for gossip and preserving truth for accountability. Mark, still with Harbor Vale after years of ground-level work, led a logistics team that younger employees respected. He was not a hero. He was useful, and that was a more honest redemption than applause. Selena did not attend, but she sent a small donation to the intern fund every year. Joey no longer checked the amount personally. Victor did not attend, but the compliance office where he worked adopted Harbor Vale's attribution tracking system. Joey saw the contract and smiled at the strange circles life drew. Damon certainly did not attend, but one of Silver Ark's former analysts, now leading a repaired research unit, presented data on ethical restructuring outcomes. The crowd clapped. Mira took the stage last and called Joey up against his will. She told the crowd that he hated being surprised, but loved surprising enemies, which was why everyone had conspired to unveil the new sign then. A curtain dropped from the restored transport station entrance. The sign read, Manhwa Gate at Rivergate Station. Joey froze. He disliked monuments to living people. Everyone knew that. Mira leaned close and whispered that the community had voted, and for once, governance was being used against him. The crowd laughed. Joey looked at the sign, then at the people gathered beneath it. A gate was not a statue. It was not a throne. It was a passage. People would move through it without thinking of him every time. Workers going to shifts, students going to class, families going home. Entrepreneurs hauling equipment, musicians carrying instruments, cleaners, coders, cooks, designers, drivers, tenants, teachers. A gate was useful, he accepted. When he spoke, his voice shook only once. He said the first door he bought cost $1 because the world thought what was behind it had no value. But every person standing there had paid the real price of building something worth entering. He said his name on the gate mattered less than the direction it opened. He asked them to make sure it always opened toward people who had been kept outside. That night, after the square emptied, Joey walked alone through the station entrance. The sign glowed softly above him. He took the $1 bill from his wallet, the symbolic one from the warehouse, and folded it carefully. He placed it inside a small sealed box built into the station wall with a plaque beneath it. The plaque read, "For the next worthless thing that is not worthless." No hashtags, no slogan, no brand campaign, just a promise. Years later, people would argue about the legend of Joey Manhwa. Some would say he was a genius investor who saw distressed value before everyone else. Some would say he was lucky, a man handed a supernatural system at the exact moment his life collapsed. Some would say he was ruthless because his enemies did fall, publicly and painfully. Some would say he was merciful because many people who harmed him found ways to repay instead of vanish. Some would say the $1 system was never real, only a story he told to explain sharp legal instincts and perfect timing. Joey never tried too hard to convince them. The truth was bigger than proof. He had been betrayed in a glass room. He had been mocked as broke. He had lost love, work, pride, and the last illusion that kindness guaranteed loyalty. Then a phone lit up in the rain and offered him the first impossible transaction. But the system did not make Victor steal. It did not make Selena lie. It did not make Damon manipulate. It did not make coworkers laugh. It only revealed that the world was full of hidden clauses, buried value, unpaid debts, and doors waiting for someone desperate enough to read the fine print. The adventure had never been about becoming rich enough to humiliate everyone back. That was only the beginning. The real story was about learning that money power can punish, but only restored value can heal. Public humiliation can expose villains, but only changed systems protect the next quiet worker. Hidden ownership can reverse status, but shared ownership can prevent another victor from rising. Revenge can wake a broken man, but it cannot be the bed he sleeps in forever. Still, there was satisfaction. Of course there was. Joey was not made of stone. There were days when he passed the archive video of Victor signing the apology and felt a small, sharp pleasure. Days when he saw old comments calling him broke and smiled at Harbor Vale's balance sheet. Days when a person who once ignored him now bowed too deeply, and he remembered exactly how the office had laughed. He did not pretend revenge had no taste. He simply refused to make it his only food. One winter evening, snow instead of rain fell over Rivergate. The city softened under white. Joey, older now but not old, walked from the station to Starlight Theater. A new generation of students was performing a play about workers who bought back a factory from corrupt owners. The story was clearly inspired by him, though the villain had a ridiculous mustache and the hero's phone talked in rhymes. Joey found this offensive to accuracy and delightful in spirit. Mira sat beside him, laughing before the curtain even rose. During the final scene, the young actor playing the betrayed worker lifted a fake dollar and declared that value was not what powerful men said it was. The audience cheered. Children shouted. Someone in the back whistled. Joey felt embarrassed, moved, and amused all at once. Afterward, a little boy asked if the story was true. Joey crouched to his level and said some parts. The boy asked if a dollar could really buy a company. Joey thought carefully. He said a dollar can buy a door if everyone else thinks the room behind it is empty. But once you open it, you still have to clean the room, fix the roof, pay the people, and decide who gets invited inside. The boy nodded with the seriousness of someone receiving secret knowledge. Then he asked if there were snacks. Joey pointed him toward the lobby. Myra said that might be his best explanation yet. Joey said snacks clarified economics. They walked home through the snow past the glowing station sign. The sealed dollar in the wall remained hidden but present like a seed. Joey no longer checked his phone for system messages. He checked weather alerts, meeting notes, student recital reminders, and occasional terrible jokes from Mira. The magic had faded into habit. The habit had become culture. The culture had become protection. At the edge of Rivergate, they passed the old East Dock warehouse. Its windows shone with late workers finishing a routing update for a hospital supply network. Joey stopped and looked at the building. Mira asked what he was thinking. He said he was thinking about the night he slept inside with no heat, no plan beyond revenge, and a phone full of impossible messages. She asked if he missed that intensity. He took a long breath, snow touched his coat, and vanished. He said no. Then he smiled. Maybe a little Mira rolled her eyes. They kept walking, far across the city. Crown Line Tower still stood. Somewhere, executives still performed importance in glass rooms. Somewhere, a worker still stayed late while someone else prepared to steal the credit. Somewhere, a person still heard the word broke thrown like a verdict. Joey knew Harbor Vale could not fix every room, but there were clinics now, charters, funds, tools, articles, laws, examples, and people who knew how to look for value in places power dismissed. There were doors, more than before, and sometimes that was enough to change what happened after the laughter. Because the people who mocked Joey Manhwa had believed wealth was the watch, the car, the fiancé on the boss's arm, the office applause, the tower address, the luxury dinner, the ability to fire a man and make everyone clap. They believed being broke meant having no visible shield when cruelty arrived. They believed ownership belonged only to those who looked expensive. They were wrong. Joey's first dollar did not buy revenge. It bought evidence that price could lie. After that, every move collected interest. A locked presentation returned stolen credit. A repossessed car exposed fake wealth. A frozen bonus protected wages. A rented necklace revealed borrowed status. A dying warehouse became software. An old newspaper became memory. A forgotten district became leverage. A theater became voice. A housing complex became home. A service worker claim made a tower bow. A community note turned small investors into stakeholders. A piano came back from the place where sacrifice had been misused and became music for children who had never heard the original wound. Victor learned that stolen power collapses when the files open. Selena learned that choosing shine over truth leaves you reflected in broken glass. Damon learned that old gates can be bought from underneath when the ground remembers who paid for it. And Joey learned that owning the future is not about making everyone fear your signature. It is about making sure the future cannot be stolen from people who build it. On the anniversary of the first acquisition, Joey returned to the station wall before sunrise. No cameras, no ceremony. He stood before the plaque and placed his palm against the cool surface. The city was quiet. Rivergate had not woken yet. For a moment, he heard rain in memory. The laugh of the office, the snap of Victor's fingers, the ring hitting the cardboard box, the impossible chime of the system. Then he heard something else, a train approaching. Lights appeared down the track. The station began to hum. People would arrive soon. Workers, students, tenants, founders, cleaners, drivers, designers, musicians, clerks, analysts, all carrying their own invisible valuations. Some would feel powerful. Some would feel tired. Some would feel one insult away from breaking. They would pass beneath his name without knowing the full story. and that was fine. A gate did not need applause to serve. Joey took out his phone. For one impossible second, the screen flickered. Not a dashboard, not an acquisition window, just a line of text, faint as breath on glass. Value recognized, then it vanished. Joey laughed quietly, shook his head, and put the phone away. The train doors opened. The first passengers stepped into Rivergate Station under the sign bearing his name. Among them was a young man in a cheap suit holding a folder too tightly, eyes shadowed by a night of worry. He paused near the plaque, reading the words about the next worthless thing that was not worthless. Joey saw him. The young man looked embarrassed and moved aside, as if he was used to making room for people who seemed more important. Joey stepped aside first. The young man blinked. It was a small gesture, almost nothing, worth less than $1 in the market of dramatic revenge. But sometimes the smallest reversal is where the future begins. Joey walked into the morning, not as the office loser, not as the hidden owner, not as the $1 ghost, not as the man who bought the company that humiliated him, but as someone who had learned the most expensive lesson from the cheapest purchase. Nobody becomes worthless because the wrong people fail to value them, and no empire is richer than the one that proves it again and again.